Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you tonight? Where's the energy? I don't know where the energy is, man. Like, welcome to the show, Testy Johnson. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Nasser Games. Nice to see you, Deej Nuts, for $5, starting with, come on, Wick. You could only find a 2% dip for the screenshot. Tisk tisk, I expected better of you. Look, that's where it was when I made the screenshot. I'm not gonna do the whole searchy game for the worst outlook on this. I want a screenshot that was accurate to the time I put it together. But yeah, today we're gonna be talking about Trump's tariffs and his plans for tariffs and how he is using them, some say, as a negotiating tactic to get to zero tariffs. Some say he's using these as a way to bring back American industrialism. Others say he's using it to destroy the economy on purpose so they can devalue the dollar and refinance the debt. Still others say he's just retarded. And today, we're going to talk about what that is, what that means, and why. And we've got some great people to come and talk to you today. We're going to give the mic first to Nonfon to start this show. Nonfon, tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm Nonfon. You can catch my streams on YouTube and on Twitch and Kick at Nonfon420. And I am the ultimate free trader. I think everything from the kind of shifting, contradictory goal of the tariffs to the insane formula they use to get them to the way they're announcing it and rolling it out has all been fucking insane and basically indefensible in so many ways. I can't fit it all in an opening statement. So I'm going to lay out, I think, a few brief things that I think we're going to circle back to a lot in this debate. One, trade is mutually beneficial. There are benefits from comparative advantage, regardless of if you're in a trade deficit or, what your trading partner tariffs you. Second is we should care about things in aggregate. We should care about the tariffs aggregate impact on manufacturing because they may help it in some ways and hurt it in other ways. We have to care about things in aggregate. They may help wages in some places, hurt wages in other ways. We should care about the aggregate amount of things. 3, trade is just a type of technology. It's just a way to indirectly produce things we import by first producing things to export and then trading for them. Just like any other technology, it might have some people might leave some people worse off, but we would never argue that we should dig canals with spoons instead of shovels because, using spoons would create more jobs. Lastly, the theory and empirical evidence are just generally against tariffs. We have reason to believe in theory that tariffs will be a net job loss, and the empirical evidence supports it. We have good reasons to believe in theory that tariffs reduce productivity, and the empirical evidence supports it, etc., etc. That's all I got to say.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. We're going to get into it. Don't worry. Non-fun, everyone. Next up, Tyler. Go ahead. Tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Average debate enjoyer. I make videos, and I stream, and I play video games and talk politics. And I think I'm the only left-winger on the panel here today. I'm going to be going up against Trickle-Down Nonfon, as you just heard from, who is very big into his Reaganite pro top 1% earns. We just look at the aggregate numbers overall and don't worry about the middle class losing grounded value and good paying jobs. They can go be the service industry, take out record high credit card debt, work the shittiest jobs they've ever had that don't have healthcare coupled to it at all. And whatever. Just let these other countries that run their entire industries off of burning coal take all of our jobs so we can say we did good in climate change and wash our hands of it and let the planet burn because, my cell phone's a little cheaper. So I'm going to be arguing for the left-wing position here that tariffs are what unions want and need. We saw unions decrease from 28% of the private sector to 7%, and that's why unions have been backing these tariffs, including the United Auto Workers, who came out supporting the car tariff, saying it's about time because Nancy Pelosi ran on it, Barack Obama ran on it, and all of them did absolutely nothing.
Okay, thanks for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, Tiberius D. Who are you? What do you do? And what are your opening thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm generally just hiding out here in the dark room, but that's how I like it. I don't really politically stream anymore. I usually just like to talk to about the 7 intelligent people that I've run into on Twitch Pool, and then hopefully I can find another one here and there. I do not believe that tariffs are openly good, but I don't believe that they're openly bad. I think it's something that you want to use with a scalpel. Unfortunately, when it comes to Donnie, he is the worst person to ever use a scalpel on anything. He likes to use hammers and throws it at anything that he can. I generally think that tariffs can be a good thing. And I think that there is actually evidence within history that they can be. So I'm generally like more pro. But the way that he's going about it is absolutely trash, particularly going after against the very trade deal that he signed. Anyway, I'm a moderate right winger, and MAGA hates me because I'm an institutionalist, and Democrats hate me because I'm a social conservative. Passing it on.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. I was told that you were pro-Trump tariffs, so we might need to bring on a third for your side. We'll see.
I can back some of it up. Some of it I can't.
Fair enough. I guess we'll get someone, I'm sure. But thank you for being here, and I do appreciate you. Next up, first time guest on my show, TheSnailG. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's going on? I'm the Snail. I'm just a guy, sick of bad takes. And as far as tariffs goes, tariffs are a tax. Taxes are a tool that can sometimes be good, sometimes be bad. In terms of the Trump tariffs, they're completely indefensible. We had some alluding to a goal of, protecting unions or protecting jobs, whatever that may be. The tariffs fail at that at several levels. Trump says that they're to reduce the trade deficit, but we still put tariffs on countries that we have a trade.
Turn your mic up
with.
like double what you got. Just
Double.
crank it.
All right.
Continue.
All right, how's that?
We'll see. Keep going.
All right, so yeah, basically tariffs are not that helpful in how they're being implemented today. In general, we prefer free trade agreements, which we've had in the past. Obviously, some folks might not benefit from every single trade agreement. That's why we make more trade agreements. We have domestic policy, we have domestic tax policies, subsidies, et cetera, to help these industries. Really, you don't want to protect an industry just for the sake of protecting industry. And Trump is basically 100% clueless in implementing these tariffs. We don't really know what he wants because the actual implementation contradicts the things he says. And, we're just coming along for the ride. So, that's basically my position.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'd like to hear you, though, so you got to say it with your chest, man. I don't know what's with your mic, but it's still very low. Just turn it up, crank it up, and we'll get you in where we can. So, gang, Trump's tariffs. Let's talk about that. Most economists that I've seen say that are worried that this is going to cause a recession. I've seen people on Fox News. I've seen people across the board, Republican, Democrat, left-wing, right-wing, point to specifically Trump's tariffs as quote-unquote causing a recession. How accurate is that? Or are they just blowing smoke up our ass? Or is a recession actually a good thing for some fucking reason? I don't know. Go ahead, defend it, Tyler. I'll give it to you.
Okay, so going off of what the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, says is the economy is shambled, this type of reconstruction is going to create some sort of recessionary action. A recession itself would take a couple quarters. We don't know if it's going to take that long. But what he was talking about 2 days ago was front-loading, getting all these policies out there immediately, letting the economy be stumbling around while it's stumbling around from the previous administration. As we've seen the last 2 years, this crash is nothing but the norm. So why not take these things while the economy is still working itself out, re-implement them at the beginning, and work our way out from there? So it could be that front-loading recession. At the end of the day, Scott Bassett is also an economic advisor, is also saying that the current system we have with artificially low interest rates is pretty much going to collapse on itself eventually. If we have 0% interest rates, what we're doing is incentivizing borrowing to people that might not necessarily be able to afford it if we actually had interest rates. We're giving money to people that can't actually afford their loans. And it's turning out that we're getting more credit card debt, more college debt than ever. People are racking up debt with the current system, and the only people that are getting rich are the 1% of giant companies that can actually afford to do trade on the global level. This is trickle-down economics, hands down.
Okay, wait, real quick. What interest rate is 0%?
The borrowing interest rate that we saw over the last 20 years is not 0%, but artificially lower than it has been. 0% was an exaggeration, but before COVID, we had a 20-year period of free money, as it was called in the economic circles.
Right. So we had easy money after 2008 because the economy kind of sluggishly recovered from that. But also, this crash is absolutely not the norm. I think it's the fourth largest 2-day crash in history. This is absolutely something we have not seen under Biden. Dog, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's the fourth largest 2-day crash in history. It's the ninth largest 1-day crash. If you fucking pull out some ass-like statistic like that, absolutely. But if you actually just take a look at the stock market for the last 2 years,
wait, don't you think that
it's
indicates that isn't the norm? That isn't the norm? What do you mean? It's not normal for stocks to crash this much within 2 days. It's not normal for stocks to fall this much within a day.
Yeah, generally, but if you look at the last 2 years, as
Generally,
I said, it's the norm because that's what's been happening. July 2024.
We did not have stock market crashes like this in 2022 or in 2023.
In July 2024, we saw one of the biggest crashes in U.S. history up until this one.
Bigger than this one in the same amount of time.
It's a crash under Biden. Don't worry about it. It's a crash under Trump. He's ruining the country. It's just partisanship. It's so partisan. You talked yourself into being a Reaganite just to oppose Trump.
So again, so two things. One, I'm not convinced that obviously stock market crashes could have multiple causes. Some of them are the president's fault. A lot of them aren't the president's fault. I think the last one that we had under Biden or whatever, the Kamala crash, I think that had to do with the Bank of Japan raising interest rates. That's my memory of that crash, and I don't think it was as big as this one. And secondly, I'm a neoliberal. I don't claim to be anything other than a neoliberal, okay? The idea that there's some type of contradiction between me being a neoliberal and me being pro-free trade is hilarious. It's ridiculous. There's obviously no contradiction there. Neoliberals are the ones that like free trade. If you don't want to call me a left-winger because of that, that's absurd, but that's stupid because there are plenty of other economic interventions that I'm in favor of, and I think generally it's fine to call me a left-winger because of that. But obviously, I want what's best for the middle class. I just happen to believe that free trade is what's best for the middle class. I don't believe that protectionism, which I believe costs jobs and lowers aggregate income and all these things, is good for the middle class.
So what you're saying is what's best for the middle class is if these giant companies that can afford to do economics on that level, on the global level, make a ton of money and it trickles down to the middle class is what you're saying.
We don't have to jam this into trickle down.
I believe that's what you're for.
I believe that increasing job opportunities and lowering the cost of consumer goods is good for the middle class. That is what I believe, and I believe free trade does that.
Okay, and you're saying that other instances, like sanctions and things of that nature, aren't anti-free trade, but tariffs are.
No, I'm not saying. I think sanctions are anti-free trade, and there's plenty of sanctions that I probably don't support. But
what if we have climate policy, we force somebody through economic coercion or economic intervention to adopt forms of climate policy to do trade with us? Is that not free trade?
Free trade agreement.
Well,
that's economic coercion.
One, I don't know if I would strictly consider that free trade if we're literally engaging coercion to make them have some environmental regulation. But this is insane, Tyler. You do not believe that Trump's goal with this is to get other countries to negotiate on the environment. You don't believe this. No, you don't believe this.
I don't care what Trump's goal is. I'm talking about the actual result of the tariffs. And if it's good or not, I don't care if Trump's goal is to fucking get to the moon. I'm talking about what's going to happen to the economy as a result.
If Trump's goal isn't to improve the environment or whatever, how are we going to negotiate with these countries to improve the environment? What do you mean?
We haven't been. They're scaling up with coal plants. India, China are spending more money on different things that we've already banned in this country, scaling up to meet the production needs because we've shipped off their manufacturing to them. If we bring that manufacturing back to the United States, yes, it'll cost more, but at the same time, it also won't be polluting the environment because we don't run our grid off of coal.
I don't believe that's
drill, baby, drill. Are we drilling more oil than ever?
Well.
Also, the European Union, who we're putting tariffs on, do you think that they have less environmental regulations than us?
No. But I was going to get to all the wins that came from this. The European Union just came out 2 hours ago and said they will match Trump on zero tariffs.
Yeah, Trump rejected that deal already.
Trump rejected that deal and the deal with Vietnam, and even though Israel lowered its trade barriers, Trump still tariffed Israel. Can you, Tyler, you at least admit that the formula they used for these reciprocal tariffs had nothing to do with trade or not trade?
Yeah, we had that conversation privately. Right? I think it was stupid. I thought it was going to be way more complicated than it was.
So if the formula they used to calculate these tariffs has nothing to do with the actual tariff they imposed, if Donald Trump is openly saying this isn't enough, we need to run trade surpluses with these countries, why on earth do you think he's going to accept any deal for free trade with these countries? Why on earth? Why would we think that? He's already rejected some.
because he's already also gotten rid of some too. So like if you're just going to cherry pick the fact that he's rejected the newest tariffs before they even went into place, I think in his mind he'd have to go in for a couple of weeks to let these countries know, hey, this is what you get for fucking putting tariffs up against us when we were hurting economically. We're going to show you a little bit of what it's about. Maybe it's a slight spank on the ass before we take them away. But he is offering them the off-ramps, and 50 countries have reached out to him, including India, the EU, Canada. All sorts of countries have reached out and said they'll drop their tariffs. So if 50 of 170, some of the biggest countries in the world, are saying they're going to drop their tariffs, how is this not a victory?
Wait, so just to be clear, the whole plan is to...
Hold on, let's Snail in. Snail, go ahead, please. And use your big boy voice, remember?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I thought we're on the pro-tariff side, but we're saying actually the ultimate goal is to have deals with no tariffs. We want to get rid of the tariffs eventually. So is it just a negotiation tactic, or are tariffs good? Which is it? They can't be both.
That we got to get into details because there's 3 different types of tariff that have been put out using 2 different types of policy. If we want to get into the tariffs that have been used, fentanyl, we have the risk tariffs, the one that got voted down recently on the Canadian border. Those are for different reasons. Trump's getting concessions out of those countries. Other than Canada, I can give you exactly what the concessions are for each one of those, and most of them we've gotten them. The other tariffs he's talking about, the 10% flat tax, people inside of his administration are saying that needs to happen to make us have a competitive edge in these countries. Even if they don't do reciprocal tariffs, that 10% is going to give us a manufacturing bump that we needed to undo some of the work that's been done over the last 50 years. Because again, in the 1960s, we're at 30% manufacturing.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
So I can wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to reply to that 1960 30% manufacturing point at some point. But I mean, look, Tyler, come on. You can't tell me every time Trump comes out on stage and rages about their trade deficit, rages about what you just said, he wants to bring manufacturing back. It pulls out of the free trade agreement we were going to have with the Trans-Pacific nations. You can't tell me this guy just wants free trade with these countries when he says tariffs are the best word in the dictionary over and over. Come on, man.
Yeah,
really?
I watch him speak, so I know exactly what he's saying on these things. He's not saying, I love free trade. Free trade is the best thing in the world. He's saying these are awful deals. We're getting ripped off. He came out against TPP, and that was one of the major reasons why he won. Hillary Clinton had to reverse her stance on something she helped negotiate because it was so unpopular when he came out against it. This is something the people want, and you might not, like everyone, blah blah blah. Yeah, you might not like democracy at all and want to just rule by fiat, but we have a democracy here. And people want this to go in the direction. Maybe I'm not saying free trade is bad. I'm not saying there's not benefits to it. I'm saying the pendulum has swung too far in this direction and it needs some pullback. And this is the welcome pullback. I did say fiat. I'm accidentally. My bad.
I mean, to be clear, I like
Fiat's
democracy
fine,
generally.
Okay, I don't know the fiat joke, but just to kind of center things a little bit, right? Let's talk.
Wait,
okay,
please.
finish your point, but then I want to center things. Go ahead.
Okay, listen. First of all, I like democracy generally. It's just that, like, when considering whether something is good or bad, I don't really care, like, if voters think this thing is good or bad. And also, this is going to take a second, sorry, Wick, but I just don't buy into the idea that the reason the manufacturing share of employment is lower than it was in the 60s, whatever, is because of trade. A lot of it is, one, we've just gotten more productive. The country that lost the most manufacturing jobs in the past 100 years has been China. China's still the manufacturing, powerhouse of the world or whatever. They just got more productive. The same thing happened in the U.S. That's why manufacturing output grew all the way up until 2008. Well, the manufacturing share of employment was falling down. Employees got better at making more things. And we've also, along with that, just moved higher up the value chain. A lot of the manufacturing jobs in the U.S. now are making like highly specialized, high value added stuff. It's not even jobs that a lot of high schoolers can get anymore because these are jobs that require a lot of knowledge and training to do. And the last thing is that this is a pattern every developed country, including the ones like Germany and South Korea, which have strong manufacturing sectors and trade surpluses, have followed. They follow the same pattern. A continued decline in agricultural employment, a continued rise in service sector employment, and the manufacturing share of employment following an inverted U-shaped path. It rises at first, it peaks, and then it falls. Every advanced economy has followed this pattern. There are structural reasons behind it. If you want to read the book about it, read Behind the Curve by Robert Z. Lawrence.
Okay.
But it's a normal path for all advanced economies to take, and it's dumb to try to reverse it.
Okay, who's blue shirt? It's TheSnailG. Okay, thank you for the 100 bits. Let me read these things, and we're going to give it to Tyberius D here. And then I do have a question to maybe get us on track a little bit. $5 from Dej Nuts to say, even with crashes, stocks are up almost 100% since COVID. 98% of that isn't held by retail investors. The average youngin view it as ill-gotten gains. Thank you for the $5. $5 from Artemis Fowl. Welcome back, Artemis Fowl. Free trade was great for the middle class. Just ask the Rust Belt after we implemented NAFTA. Idiot. And then $5 from Artemis Fowl. EU offered 0% tariffs on construction materials, not a blanket 0% overall. That isn't worth taking some word I'd EAE, the flat rate. Thank you for the $5 and thank you for the 6-month membership, Dej Nuts. I'm an engineer with no degree. He is wrong. And then $2 from Dej Nuts. Was the 5 trillion post-COVID from productivity? ? Thank you for the money. But let's give the mic to Tiberius to weigh in, and we'll see what he has to say. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. So defending Trump to at least some degree, while I think that Trump's tariffs definitely can be recessionary, is there any good in this? And I'm going to have a crazy take here, but I'm going to throw it out. If you ever wanted to purposely start a recession in politics, this is when you want to do it. At the very beginning of a term, at the very beginning of any of this system, is where you are basically putting yourself on the back foot so you can advance forward for the rest of your term. Do I think it's smart? I'm not sure yet because no one's actually done this before. But I think that Republicans have been really good at throwing a lot of the economic woes on the side of the Democrats optically. And while I don't necessarily agree with it, I have to say it's been effective. And if they continue to be successful with that, this politically can be a coup de grace for the Republicans. So that's the why. And then as far as what he claims versus what he's getting at, I got to be honest here. A lot of this is legalism. Trump is claiming he's doing things for different reasons because if he actually claimed for the reasons he actually wanted it, he wouldn't have the legal authority to impose the tariffs, which is a huge problem. And I hope we can all get into that.
That's abuse of power. No way to get around that. Trump is abusing, especially with Canada. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Wait,
if
yeah,
we all agree
so-
on that, then we can smack that. I do have about half the things that Nonfon said earlier that I do want to get in this angle with, but Wick, this is your show, and you said you wanted to recenter this.
Depending on what it is, maybe my question will help, right? Get us into the weeds here. So a lot of chatter has been talked about how, in one of our super chatters just mentioned, the stock market isn't indicative of a healthy or a non-healthy economy. Many people have said that, oh, it's just the billionaires, it's just the millionaires, it's just the 1%. I think you said this in your opening statement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, that that's what's taking the hit right now, and the middle class and the lower class isn't really going to be affected. Do we believe this? Is this true? Why or why not?
I did not say the lower class is going to not get affected. They're absolutely, like, if you put a new tax in, you put new climate policy in, you put new worker regulations in, it's absolutely going to raise the cost of production and it's going to hurt the middle class in the short term. We're not going to deny that.
Okay. But let's talk about the stock market specifically. Does the stock market losing value matter to most Americans? Why or why not?
Yes, because we should have 401ks. We should have investments in the stock market. Most people will just invest in their work 401k, have it in the bank, and that is investing in the stock market. So you might not realize it, but if you all check on your 401ks today, you'll find them about 10 to 15% lower than a few months ago, which is crazy for one person's actions to have a 10 to 15% reduction in your retirement savings. If you were due to retire soon in the next few years, you're basically screwed. You just lost 10 to 15% of your retirement time and savings.
I want to split hairs here.
I mean, I think
it's definitely beneficial to have a 401k. I'm not going to push against that because I want to afford that going into the future, is that 401ks are better than Social Security. But on the other side of that is that for the majority of Americans, no, this is not a huge issue. The last numbers I can get is that about 73 million Americans have a 401k. So you're basically talking about the top 30%. I totally get if you have the rest of the country saying, hey, you rich folks and your middle class folks can get fucked because I've been eating shit for the last 4 years. I can roll with that conversation. I definitely can.
Nonfon, go ahead.
Yeah, so look, I mean, not everyone has a 401k. For the people who have a 401k, it matters quite a lot to them. But I think the stock market reflects a lot of uncertainty right now. It reflects, I think the CNN has their fear index. It reflects the fact that people are fucking losing it because not only are they worried about tariffs, they don't even know what tariffs will actually go into effect. And we know that uncertainty is just generally pretty bad for the economy. It reduces investment. It reduces consumer spending. Part of the reason that GDP now forecast is down all the time is because businesses are investing less. Business investment has stopped growing. I mean, it's great. I think it's 0.4% last time or whatever I checked. Consumer spending, I believe, has also slowed down in growth. It reflects uncertainty, and uncertainty is bad.
So business spending is up from last month. Leads into a good point. Trump says there's a promised $5 trillion of investment spending in the United States from foreign companies. We're talking centrifuges and chips from the number one Taiwanese company, Apple, building a 22,000 job plant in Texas, and then a training facility in Detroit. There's about $5 trillion in investment, building, and whatnot that's being rushed through the EPA right now. So they just look at these current numbers and then kind of ignore everything that's coming down the pipeline that's predicted to come out around Q2, Q3 is when we start seeing these numbers come in. It doesn't compute. Trump can only move so fast when he's doing so many things. He's had roundtable meetings with all these business leaders. He's had his tariff team. He's had Scott Betsett and what the fuck is his name? The Secretary of Commerce talking with these companies personally. They were well aware of these tariffs beforehand, before they made their investment. They know exactly why they're investing in the United States. We're seeing a ton of manufacturing come in at record numbers. Again, $3.5 trillion has already been signed up in 2 months. So to say there's no investment while we're doing record-breaking investment spending is just wild to me, just because it hasn't materialized on paper.
It is true. If you check the GDP Now forecasting, I probably find the archived version. Part of the reason it's low is that business investment in aggregate obviously was, I think, it's still technically up, but it's zero. It was 0.0.
Yeah, it went up.
But it's it was 0.4% growth. And look, again, this is gonna go back to trade as a type of technology. It's gonna go back to actually two things. One, there are mutual benefits from trade, and trade is just a type of technology. This investment that's happening, that is, one, arguably deadweight loss, right? Because we're spending our own domestic resources making things that we could be importing for cheaper, right? There's no reason to have that distortion. You're hurting a ton of other industries by doing that. You're reducing investment in other industries and shifting that investment towards protected industries. There may be reason to do that if there's national security concerns, but having that Japanese investment, SoftBank or whatever, do shit was not a national security concern. Actually, that was foreign direct investment. That wasn't even domestic investment or anything.
That leads us into intent, though. Why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump telling Mexico and Canada, because of the USMCA that he wants to restructure, that since China found a loophole in the USMCA to put a bunch of investment into Mexico, they're now shipping things past the tariff through Mexico into the United States again? He's asking both of those countries to tariff. A lot of these countries around, what we're seeing is a 60% tariff coming into effect against China in a minute here. This is causing people to massively decouple. When they did decouple last time, they went to Vietnam, they went to other countries. So you can see these tariffs going on all the other countries they went to because they're not coming back to the United States. They just go to the next cheap haven. So every cheap haven needs to be cut off in order for them to come back to us. And they have been. He's also threatening a 100% tariff if you leave the country as a U.S. company.
Wait, so Trump signed the USMCA?
That's actually probably unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Wait,
and then they
found real quick.
Hold on.
They found a loophole.
Okay, but just real quick. Why do they have to come back at all? Right? That's my question, right? So if they can't go and they can't get it for enough profit margin, what's to stop them saying, okay, well, we'll just do other things. We're not gonna produce that anymore. It's not gonna make enough money. Why would we do it?
Somebody else is gonna step up and do it. It's the basic law of capitalism. If there is a demand, a supply will rise to meet it. So as
long as it's affordable to do so, right? But when you have protectionists, that exists in a free trade system. When your system is no longer a free trade system, and you have protectionism and tariffs and taxes and all these things that are on these things, it can absolutely stifle STEMI investment. That happens all the time.
Absolutely, that's the whole reason why people want to.
Wait, real quick.
Go ahead.
So my point was about, again, think about the aggregate business investment. No one is denying that if you tariff industries, you're going to shift investment away from unprotected industries and towards protective industries. Very directly, tariffs have mechanisms for hurting other sectors, right? Like tariffs hurt exports because they tend to appreciate exchange rates. They tend to make the price of the dollar go up. That's not happening right now because people are freaking the fuck out and dumping their dollars. But generally, they make the price of the dollar go up, and that hurts export industries, right? And secondly, your point about the I want to mention the point about the cheap haven part. They just go to the next cheap haven or whatever. I will mention what that does is it undoes a lot of progress that my goat Biden made with friendshoring. Okay, there are probably industries that we don't want to be made. We don't want production to be in China, but we. Doesn't really matter if production of steel or whatever is taking place in Japan or South Korea, our allies. If you tariff these other countries, production doesn't want to move there, even though it would be beneficial for us if the production moved there. Like he's tanking our relationship with our allies. Also, we can crash our own economy. It's fucking it's absurd. Like
hold on. So I'm going to address both your points. One, what productivity means is using coal as energy, paying your workers lower wages, no worker protections or consumer protections. Like what you're saying by productive, that you mean finding a loophole through all the things I advocate for here. So that and the second thing you're saying is like, if yes, they're gonna go to our friends over there. Maybe they're gonna go here, there, the other place. But at the end of the day, those countries also have tariffs against us too. South Korea, Japan also have tariffs. If they're our friends, why are they tariffing us? And why can't Trump put tariffs against them and see over 50 countries come to him and offer to drop them? It's working.
I'll let you answer that, Nonfon, and then we're going to go to Tiberius. So answer the question, then to Tiberius.
Yeah, so, I mean, you agree that the level of tariffs that Trump is imposing is nowhere near reciprocal and not even based on the tariffs that they are applying to us. It's fucking absurd, obviously. The reason that they have tariffs is in some part because just like any country, there's going to be some level of special interest group capture and like rational ignorance on behalf of consumers because tariffs have concentrated benefits and diffuse detriments, right? A lot of times special interests can lobby to protect their industry because it's not rational for consumers to look into what industries are being tariffed because it's just they are only paying like $30
so people are dumb,
in other words, or whatever. It's rational. Well, no, they're not. Special it's actually interest. Rational. It's not worth their time to look into what industries are being protected because it's such a diffuse benefit or detriment.
Did you answer the question? If so, we're going to go to Tiberius.
He answered it.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I want to answer your question, Wick, on just like why would you do this? Like, what's the actual benefit? I'm going to hit this from the side that I'm kind of convinced of, and I studied economics in college. Granted, I don't have a huge degree or anything. I'm kind of a layman. But this is based upon the idea that you think comparative advantage is actually horseshit. Largely, just simple terms is that if you all trade, it's the same way in that if I specialize in a particular job and you specialize in a particular job, we're going to have mutual benefits from, doing those things. Countries can do the same. But the assumption of why this would be wrong is that the same thing does not apply on a macro level. Is that you can have entire countries with a billion people who make 1/3 or 1/5 of what you do, or maybe even 1/10, and they can front load every economic doctrine that you have to where you're actually losing out money year after year after year. Not only have we seen advancements to China over the last 30 years be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $50 trillion, but we're still paying them for their goods at the same time. And some people are like, hey, why is it that I keep getting promised this new opportunity, this new golden era with free trade, and I lost my job 10 years ago at Whirlpool, and yet I can't get one of these new jobs. I can't get anything that actually work for me. I definitely get the skepticism, but I'm going to take it to another degree. When it comes to service jobs versus industrial jobs tend to be higher value added. And I'm not saying we can bring them all back. Automation is fucking a thing. But from the estimates I've seen, we've lost somewhere between 20 to 40 million jobs to offshoring. And even if you account for automation, some people believe that you can get anywhere between 3 to 10 million of those back at some point. I think the appropriate figure is somewhere around the 6 million mark. Imagine what you do to your job costs, to your labor costs, if you put 6 million jobs back in the economy. What does that do to your paycheck? Probably does quite a bit. And so this is the full circle conversation. If you believe in increasing the minimum wage, increases demand, which makes it to where you can afford things, then you want to do tariffs, because that makes it to where your jobs are now guaranteed by the government to be more cost competitive within house, which means that your job is now worth more because there's more jobs to go around. I'm done with that conversation.
Okay, responses.
Yeah, so number one, I'm really curious where you're getting the 40 fucking million number from.
That's
I
the
mean, that
really
might be-
high-end estimates that I've seen. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, yeah. So even the higher end estimates I've seen are like, maybe 5 million lost due to like the China shock or whatever. And that's even that I think is an overestimate because that's not necessarily accounting for productivity. But I mean, on the wages point, again, you have to think about the aggregate and you have to think about the other static and dynamic benefits from comparative advantage. Okay, so when we trade with other countries, everyone's real wage mechanistically increases because the price of goods falls. That saving will then allow consumers, that'll mechanistically raise wages, obviously. Those savings will either let us consume more or save more, which will help businesses invest. And that's a good thing. And you also got to think about what happens to the export sector. When we supply countries with dollars via trade, that enables them to buy U.S. exports and or invest in the U.S., which again will help businesses invest. And it'll help the export sector. It'll raise wages in the export sector as well. And again, we know we have good reason to believe in theory why trade increases income. And guess what? Empirical evidence supports it. There are 3 different studies I have, all of which say trade increases income in aggregate. And there's also evidence that it actually disproportionately benefits the poor because the poor spend more on imported goods. A higher percentage of their income is spent on imported goods.
I have a hard time believing at least one point of this, and is that I can agree with most of some or most of the general most of some or most trade allow for cheaper goods to enter our domestic market. We can talk about how we have more efficiency within our market, and therefore we're allowed to assert capital into different directions of investment. The problem that I have, and this is kind of where I kind of don't believe some of this is actually as good as people like to sell it off for, is that look who tends to make all the fucking money with this system. It is really going to the top 10% in the country. And it really seems to me that since we have kind of gotten off the tariff regimen, the causation is not correlation, but I want to leave this on the table. Since we've stopped doing tariffs in a major way, we have seen the top 1% and the top 10% run away with the fucking house, run away with the golden goose for the better part of the last 70 goddamn years. I think this might be one of the factors that we said, oh yeah, it was a great idea to get rid of it, but in actuality, that's because look who's writing the paychecks and look who's actually taking the checks, who's saying it.
Okay. TheSnailG, do you want a chance to respond? I want to make sure that you get a chance to go ahead.
The top 10% being a problem or growing more than everybody else, that just seems like a problem with your domestic taxation. You just change the taxes that you charge those top 10%. You bring more wealth overall into the country. Tariffs just seem like a silly way of doing that in the most backwards way possible that ultimately reduces demand because you're tariffing, again, you're taxing the middle class consumption, the lower class consumption, the consuming class. The top 10% don't consume as much as the average person. So you want to tax those people, bring the wealth back in the country, and then drop taxes on lower and middle class.
I get what you say. Hold on, let me get this. I get what you say. This is kind of ass backwards, but I think it's ass backwards on purpose. Is saying, hey, look, yes, I am tariffing your shit because while it's going to be more expensive for me, is that you now no longer have an investment strategy that makes it better to where you can offshore my job to Honduras or you can offshore it to China or wherever the fuck else. So I'm still getting fucking paid, and that's. Excuse me. I apologize. I'm from the Rust Belt, so maybe I'm just super bitter here, but I can tell you that this is the, cultural experience of my area for the last 40 years, is that we've seen all these jobs go away. We get promised that there's going to be these new jobs, and they're not there. They're all shittier. They're all these service jobs that are supposed to be all better, all greater, and they're fucking not. And if you are going to get that new job, you better pay out the fucking nose for it so you can become a doctor or some, doctorate level person that can actually fulfill those roles. The vast majority of these people that are finding this, and maybe your mileage may vary, is that what we're trading out for is decent value-added jobs where you're building nuts and bolts or you're welding shit or, basically just fabricating things. And we're trading it out for, hey, guess what? You get to work at Sears or you get to work at Kohl's selling all the things that are made somewhere else. And that doesn't have a lot of value add. So forgive me, but I'm very much not convinced that the ass backward way is actually the thing that we've been missing.
Hold on. Do
No, I mean,
do Americans want factory jobs? Is that I
Yes.
understand that some do, but I've worked factory jobs, and oh
Mhm.
my god, they're the most soul-sucking, terrible experiences I've ever had. I would rather work as a streamer, honestly, than do it than sit as a cog in the factory machine.
How controversial of you.
As a fellow Rust builder, can I try to build a bridge with you? Wick,
Go
on
ahead,
this?
please.
All right. So on one level, I totally get it. Some of these jobs absolutely suck, and some of them are 12-hour shifts.
Yeah,
You
it's
might have
bare
it 4 or 5
minimum,
days a
and
week.
it's not good. But go ahead.
Look, I get that. The thing is like I don't understand what the alternative that's being supported by the other side actually is, because if you're talking about some of these higher end jobs where it's like, hey, you got your master's or your PhD and you go off to be part of like the academia or the corporate elite, that's great. Those people are making it. But that's not the average person in our neighborhoods that are getting these things, right? It's literally they're trading down. They're working now 60 hours a week at fucking Casey's because that's all they can find. Like, are you with me on this? We're just more soul-sucking,
I understand.
I can even respect that too.
Yeah, I understand that. Like, there's people who are worried because there are a lot of economic uncertainty, right? But these tariffs don't help with the economic uncertainty because there's no
Not
guarantee
disagreeing with that.
they're gonna bring jobs back. But also, right, employment. Look, when 2008 hit, shortly after, right, we had a lot of layoffs where I was working at the time, and I went in the military to kind of get away from that, right, to kind of escape that kind of trajectory and things like that. For a few other reasons, I'm patriotic, right? I'm a Heinlein enjoyer. I believe I have a duty to my country, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a good excuse. But what I'm trying to say is that in the last 20, 30 years, yes, jobs have been lost to automation, to offshoring, et cetera. But we have other jobs now that people are getting. Our economy is changing. And yes, that is hurting some people, but it's helping so many more. I am richer and I am better off today than I was 20 years ago. And I think that most Americans can say the same.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I got an
like,
issue
look.
with that part for sure. You can say you're richer. I can say I'm richer, but let's be real. 20 years ago, I was just coming out of high school, right? Like I'm about to have my 15th.
Sure, I'm
right?
41, so I was
know.
coming in. I was just in
What I'm
you know
getting at
I
is-
mean. Yeah.
Americans generally are richer today, even
Yeah,
at the
I
same
don't
age as their
bel-
parents.
I don't believe that with the rampant asset inflation, because it's like, hey, yeah,
It's
we're
harder to
technically
get a house.
making
I'll give you
more.
that. It's harder to get a house, but that's
Yeah,
pretty much.
it's like, hey, we're making more than we actually have ever, right? That's both with compensation and
The net worth is
full
high.
benefits, right? The net worth, I mean, I believe you, but it's all gone to the fucking boomers. Millennials are absolutely getting their fucking ass kicked.
I don't believe that to be true.
I see it every day, man. Like, and it's weird
That's
because
great.
it's
If you
like,
look at actual data, if you look at even only private market income, so not including government benefits, and even using CPI, which is a measure that I think probably overstates inflation, the wages of Gen Z and millennials are both higher than they were for their parents at the same age. And a big reason why that's happened is because the price of goods has decreased because of trade. That is a big reason why that has happened. And look, I don't think, again, you guys have to think about the aggregate. Do either you guys deny that free trade generally, if you don't like the word free trade, that's fine, generally increases aggregate income?
Absolutely. Less regulations mean more business. Less taxes mean more transactions. 100%. I'm saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
That's not always.
I'll separate from Tyler on this one. I'm not 100% convinced of that, and I'll get in with the aggregate, and I'll go into the conversation of it's like, oh yeah, even when I'm told like I'm richer than my father was, which I'm fucking not. When I actually compare this for peer to peer for people who were in my shoes 20 years ago. Like, I've seen the math, or actually a great example of this was 1995 to 2025 today, right? And if you were the average person with all the average expenses, you're up like $600 in 1995. But if you do the math today, you're in the whole 30 fucking grand. Like, yeah, like I don't believe this shit where it's just like, hey, we're richer than ever. Sure. But you know what? We're paying more than ever. Fucking cite these little bastards.
That's why you have real wages. That's why you adjust for inflation. What are you talking about?
And this
bro?
is the part where it's like, look, I studied in economics. I support my friends in academia to a point, but I think somebody's fucking lying here. I really goddamn
good to
do.
know.
Because it's basically telling a third of the country that you're completely fucking incompetent and you don't actually understand a goddamn thing. And it's like, yeah, I've done the math, guys. Like, why is it I'm spending way more than my parents did for the same fucking things? Why is it I'm spending way more for a house? Why is it that I'm spending way more for a car? Some of
College, healthcare.
Yeah, like a lot of these things when they
Insurance.
add up, it's not even fucking close, even adjusted for wages.
So,
Taxes.
it makes sense. It obviously makes sense why the price of services would rise over time compared to the price of goods. It's called the Baumol effect. It's called cost disease, believe it or not. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
I get the
but,
ratchet effect and all that shit, right?
Wages are stagnant, correct?
No.
No,
Wages
they're not
aren't stagnant.
No.
I mean, I'm not even going to take that. Like, it's not that wages are stagnant.
but
It's just
to a
expenses are fucking explosive compared. And what's
That's why we
this is
have
the-
real.
This is the crazy part for me, because it's one of those things where the most expensive thing for the average American is what can make them the most money. Asset inflation has been huge for 40 years. Most of that is your car, most of that is your house, but that can go into other things, right? That can go to stocks and bonds and the whole 9 yards. If you have those things and you're able to materialize those into financial gain, yeah, you're going to make fucking bank. But getting into those things is an absolute goddamn nightmare, right? If you don't have a house and you haven't had one for the last 7 years, good fucking luck getting one now, right? That's kind of the issue here. Like, I hear the things, I've seen the data points from people like Nonfon.
Do you think
and I'm
tariffs
like,
will make it easier or harder to build houses in America?
If I'm
Short-term
correct, short-term harder, short-term harder, long-term,
Okay.
it might go even. I'm more interested to see what it does for labor demand. That's what I'm counting on. Is that people aren't going to find that their goods are cheaper as much as they're going to find that their paychecks are bigger when the tariffs go full cycle.
Why?
When industry goes full cycle.
If you study economics, wages are to a large extent determined by productivity with comparative.
Yeah, and this is where I absolutely
people specialize in what they are more productive in. That's why America specializes in these service sector jobs that we are more productive in. That's why wages have grown over time, and we trade with other countries that have the lower average productivity for the goods that we buy. Like that.
Yeah, I hold on, Tyler. Let me get this. I totally understand that. I get you on that. When it comes down to it, economics is a demand-driven is literally a demand-driven fucking engine, right? We can say supply is there to meet that, but most of the time, if you want shit, you need demand for it. And for some reason, we're treating it, and I'm going with Tyler on this. This is supply-side economics again. We're back to Reaganomics, but the left is preaching this shit, which is fucking wild to me. It's like, hey, look, don't worry about demand. If demand shrinks because, they don't have as good a wages, that's okay, man. We'll figure it out later. Nah, I'm billing to bet if people have more
I don't
patience.
think demand. Obviously, if aggregate income is increasing, I think demand increases. If consumers save money because they have cheaper goods, that's going to increase the amount of money they can spend on other things. If
I completely understand the talking point. You have
jobs.
You just keep repeating the same thing over and over.
Yeah, like you have.
I know because your mind is broken and you're not thinking in aggregate.
We're replying to it. We're replying to it.
Some people's wages would be increased by tariff. That makes sense to me, but you're thinking in partial equilibrium, okay? You have to consider all the other jobs that are going to see increased wages because of free trade. All the price of goods going down because of free trade. That's going to increase demand in the long run.
You're basically making everyone else in the country poorer to improve the Rust Belt. And I can understand why that might be appealing for Rust Belt people, because you've spent the last 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, seeing, like you mentioned, jobs leave, towns empty, ghost towns. That stuff is very visceral. I can totally sympathize with that. And a lot of those jobs end up going to service sector economy jobs in cities, New York, LA, whatever. And it's a lot more visible to see your town decrease by 90% than it is to see New York and LA get 10% more productive. I can totally agree and understand with all of that. I just feel like
let him finish. Let Snail finish, and then you can reply.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just think the problem is that's a result of the actual supply side economics that Reagan did, where he just cut taxes on wealthy people. Where I think we need taxes in terms align with productivity. So as productivity goes up and as these top 10 percenters are making more and more money, you need to tax those gains and redistribute the wealth so that these people don't feel left out. Because like I mentioned, all these jobs went from the Rust Belt to tech companies, basically. And tech companies have really only benefited coastal cities, big cities, and middle America kind of got lost in all that. And like you mentioned, your alternative is just these shitty service jobs in the town that don't make anyone feel good, that aren't great compared to, even for all the faults of your factory job, it felt like a secure thing that your family was part of. I can respect and understand all of that. This is just like this has nothing to do with tariffs. It has nothing to do with free trade. It's just a problem of our shitty domestic tax policy for the last 50 years that hasn't served the people. And we keep, we keep
$7, and then I'll let Tyler go, and I'll toss it to Tyler. $7 Canadian. Thank you for the Canadian dollars. I hope it doesn't get tariffed. Jeff Lewis says, I think these tariffs will lead to Mega Block 1 from Judge Dredd. Goods are going to be more expensive, and people's wages are going to go down. Thank you for the $7. Okay, Tyler, we're going to pass the mic to you. You've been wanting to say something. Now is your chance.
Okay, so what Nonfon's talking about here and keeps repeating the same point over and over. Yes, you are correct. Tiberius and I are disagreeing here. You are correct that this way is the best way to maximize GDP. 100%. You keep going back to that well. The best way to maximize GDP around climate is to cut all climate policy. The best way to maximize GDP when it comes to criminals is to let all criminals out of prison so they can get to work. The best way to maximize GDP across the board is always not the right answer because there's other factors besides just maximizing GDP, like the life of the people living in your country. And if you're telling them, well, over time, 30 years from now, you're going to be richer, so just suffer, it does not work. You're telling people this is the problem I have with all libertarian arguments like this, is you ignore the practical reality of the people on the ground. If the economy shifts, and it's called structural unemployment, when the economy shifts away from your type of particular skill set and you can't find a job, when that happens, that's what our robust safety net is for. But the robust safety net taxes the people with the money to make them less productive. So your argument carried over to any other subject would be to dismantle the safety net, worker protections, climate protections, everything else you stand for.
One, I don't believe that is the case. I believe there is probably positive effects of redistribution, even on growth, at least to some extent. It's the same thing with climate things. Like, I believe because carbon is a negative externality, it actually is a good thing. It actually is a pro-growth thing to tax carbon and to internalize that externality. I don't see what the benefit is in keeping artificially protecting these manufacturing jobs just so this one subset of people doesn't have some amount of structural unemployment. Like, the labor market right now is pretty strong to begin with. Like, I don't why are we doing this? Is an insane fucking policy.
Manufacturing and production.
What?
You're leaving out production as well.
What manufacturing production? Okay, unemployment right now is at 4.2% or something. Like, the prime age employment population ratio is at 80% right now. The labor market generally is in a good place. I don't see why we need to have 10% fucking tariffs across the board, which I don't believe will even help the labor market, by the way, in aggregate. Again, aggregate. No, that's a scary word. Just to help out, a few 100,000 people at most that are victims of structural unemployment. There are so much better ways to do this. In what world is a 10% tariff across the board, plus 50% on China, plus 20% on EU, 10% on UK, whatever, better than just implementing, say, a 5% VAT, a 10% VAT, value-added tax, like every other country does, and just distributing some money to workers in the form of welfare.
But that's not productive. When you put a tax on gains, you get less gain.
So I think a value-added tax would be certainly more productive than the system we have now.
See, those taxes would add an extra cost, and that would make the cost of the goods go up. So when you add a tax to something,
no. So a value-added tax only taxes consumption on the end of the consumer. It doesn't actually tax any business-to-business transactions. So you're only negatively affecting consumption. And again, I already told, obviously, I would say raising. Wait, Tyler. We both agree. if you collect money from taxes, that might have and use it to fund a judicial system that protects property owners, that is a pro-growth thing. Taxing carbon, taxing land value is a pro-growth thing. I'm in favor of doing things that are pro-growth. It is not at all hypocritical for me to say some taxes are pro-growth. That is fucking absurd.
Okay. I guess before we give it to Tiberius here, right? Just another question for all of you. I keep hearing that tariffs are going to protect the working class. They're going to bring jobs back, etc. At what point the tariffs stay in place? A year from now, 2 years from now, unemployment goes up. People can't find jobs. You can get it in this certain sector, sure. We add about 10,000 steel workers to America, but then we've lost hundreds of thousands from companies who can no longer afford to make their products, who consume steel, who use steel in their manufacturing, who use steel in their production of whatever product that they're going with. And at what point do we just admit the tariffs don't work, right? Can you give me an example of tariffs adding jobs net to a country?
Tyler, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
With Apple's $200 billion investment right now, they are building a plant in Texas for 22,000 jobs to make chips and centrifuges. They're also putting a training facility in Detroit.
Are they doing that because of the tariffs?
Wait, no.
They said it was a factor, yes.
This is the mind of a tariff defender. They are only capable of thinking in partial equilibrium. Only capable of thinking, guess what? Motherfucker, things have opportunity cost. Apple investing that money takes resources away from other sectors. Those resources would otherwise been invested in something that is more productive, something that would likely provide more jobs, which guess what? That's why every empirical study from Obama's tariffs on tires, from George Bush's tariffs on steel, from Trump's tariffs on steel, from the IMF doing a study of 151 countries over 50 years says tariffs reduce employment in aggregate. Yeah. Obviously,
nobody's denying that.
Tariffs
We've already addressed this. I'm saying the same thing over and over.
You answer this, Tyler. You answer this. Why then, when Wick said, "Give me an example of tariffs adding jobs on net," did you not provide an example of tariffs adding jobs on net? And you just said that you would agree tariffs don't add jobs on net.
Because tariffs generally don't add jobs on net. Yes, because they reduce.
You say generally. Give me an example of where they have for a country.
I just did, but he would cut me off. So generally, yes, you are correct. That doesn't mean every single anecdote fits your generalization. I just gave you a generalization where Apple was putting their plants in other countries. They were not coming to the U.S. They came to the U.S.
You don't know the opportunity cost of them doing so, correct?
I don't know that. I just have to go off of what they said. So do you have something that they said? Because when I looked, they said the tariffs were a factor. Do you have something they said that showed they weren't?
I understand. No, I understand the tariffs could very well be a factor in the reason that I'm granting you the tariffs are the reason they came here. I don't know that to be true, but I'm granting.
What's your counter argument?
There's opportunity cost for the resources used to build that plant.
The opportunity cost is they're not being built in Bangladesh, not the United States.
There are resources used to build that plant that otherwise probably would have gone to a more productive investment in the U.S.
Yeah, 6 more restaurants, yeah.
I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah, 6 more restaurants.
Very well have added more jobs.
Okay. We have more jobs than people in the United States.
$2 from Deej Nuts. $2 from Deej Nuts to say Nonfon, you need a Snickers. Thank you.
For real. You just keep repeating the same thing over and over, even though it's being addressed.
Your mind is
oh my god.
GDP is the only thing
I'd like to answer your question there.
Tyler, I've already addressed that.
I didn't get a chance to respond. The only reason why you're saying these tariffs are not pro-growth is because you're ignoring a sector where they're actually helping us grow. You're ignoring any future outcome.
I'm exactly right. His mind is trapped in partial equilibrium. His mind can't think outside of partial equilibrium. He's only considering one sector where they are pro-growth. No one is denying tariffs will shift investment to unprotected sectors.
Are you done interrupting to repeat the same talking point that you borrowed from somebody else?
Because you repeated the same thing. Because your mind is trapped
in partial
equilibrium.
Gentlemen, I would like to answer Rick's question, and you guys have just been going back and forth.
As soon as I go to respond, you start shouting over me. So, like, you want me to respond to your comment? You're saying they're not pro-growth. That's you speculating. That's you using different studies of a different tariff that was different impact, saying these unparalleled, unprecedented tariffs are going to follow the same study of a 1938 tariff from some fucking anti-tariff firm like Cato. Kiss my ass with that shit, dude. At the end of the day, these are helping us grow. We see $3.5 trillion of investment, record numbers of investment in U.S. growth in the last couple of months. Almost all of them are citing the tariff and Trump's economic policy for the reason they are now investing in the United States instead of Taiwan, China, Bangladesh, fucking Vietnam, the Philippines. They're all coming here. I don't understand how you can explain this by just repeating the same one talking point over and over. I've addressed your point, and you just ignore the details.
No, just to be clear, I think it's ambiguous that tariffs were even part of this. Apple cites the TSMC plant in Arizona, which was brought over as part of the CHIPS Act by Joe Biden, which was direct investment, not tariffs. What do you mean it was shut down?
It's shut down. All the CHIPS Act plants, especially the one in Ohio, are currently not hiring anybody. I know 2 people in the pipe fitters union trying to get into those plants. They're currently not hiring because they're looking to see what's going on.
There might be a hiring freeze, but
yeah,
the Arizona one is absolutely functioning. The Arizona one is not shut down. That's not true.
The Ohio one is.
There's explicitly what Apple cites in that investment.
I don't see why.
Can I get Texas plant?
Yeah, but they're using the chips from the Arizona plant and TSMC to fund those AI servers in Texas. So if that Arizona plant doesn't exist, then they're invested for nothing.
3 points.
Their announcement.
No, number one, I don't know why it can't be both. Like we're making it where it's more cost competitive to build stuff at home. At the same time, we're paying people to build the factory here. So I don't know why it can't be both. I don't think that's a fucking jump. Personally, when it comes to answering Wick's question, is it overall net? I can at least give you an entire industry where it absolutely has made jobs. Over the last 20 years, or not 20 years, excuse me, over the last 5 years, we have quadrupled U.S. industrial spending, right? Construction spending. We are making more shit here. And that's not just in the fact that we're building...
right?
It's got to be more than subsidies. We're talking something on the order of a factor of 4. And here's the crazy part, and I can't make this a one-to-one because it's a correlation conversation, right? Is that, to answer your question, how long do we have to take this before we know if it worked or not? Is that I'd say you have to take this to 2030, and you have to hope that there's actually a Democrat in office and see how many of the tariffs stick. Because I'm going to argue this crazy idea that when one of the big things that actually started a mass industrialization here in the United States during the Biden administration was he didn't remove the damn tariffs. Or at least he didn't remove quite a bit of them. And because of that, is that you actually saw a lot of companies, not only because of COVID, but because those tariffs were here to stay, they did the math and they knew that it was worth building here in the United States and it was going to be bipartisan. So my thing is, it is one of those deals where we can't half-ass this. We have to go kind of full send on it, where if somebody pulls in these tariffs, we have to keep them. And we have to keep them for a while to actually show, yes, Wall Street, yes, Main Street America, this is the new medium. This is the new, this is the new paradigm that you're going to have to work under. And by that time, that's when we can take a restock. If that's too long for people, totally understand. And if, there's an election lost and we go all the way the other way, I will totally eat that. What it will kind of go after is what our good friend Snail was getting at, where it's like, hey, are you screwing over people on the coast for people in the Midwest? Unfortunately, no. I'm screwing over people on the coast for the South, which I hate the Southerners, but let's look at who's reindustrializing. It's Texas, it's Louisiana, it's Alabama, it's South Carolina, and to some degree, Georgia. The Midwest is actually fucking this up. To a large degree. We're not getting half the investment back that we should be getting, and part of that's our politics. But yeah, am I trying to do that? To some degree, yes, because here's the part that I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on the idea that screwing, the upper middle class and the upper class to where they have to take home a little less money, where I take home more, is a bad thing. In fact, it's weird. We seem to have the same goal, but we just have a completely different way of going about it.
Just to be clear, we disagree that this policy is doing that, because I'm saying
I agree with that, but our goal's the same, right?
Yeah, maybe. Well, now it is apparently, because people were hammering Kamala for her quote unquote wealth tax. people were hammering Democrats in general, saying they're bad on the economy because of tax increases, when like 90% of the time you dig into it, it's only a tax increase for people making over like $250,000, $400,000. We need all these new tax brackets to tax that wealth and that income. But every time the Democrats try and propose something, they're, lambasted as evil, economy bad people, and nobody.
Economy bad, commies, the whole 9 yards. I
$10
totally get it.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
$10 from Admiral Gibbs. This is why you need an actual conservative. Not once have we mentioned record high beef prices or the agriculture industry booming due to the tariffs. Does Nonfon not believe food production is important? And then $2 from Deej Nuts to say Phineas hasn't been the same since Ferb voted MAGA. Thank you for the $10 and thank you for the $2 respectively. Look, I'm going to jump in here a bit because you guys keep citing these numbers of 20,000 jobs here, 10,000 jobs there. But we know from the steel tariffs in 2018, we did gain some steel production jobs, but we lost jobs, again, as a direct result of the tariffs in other industries across the board that dwarfed the jobs gains. So my question would be, how many jobs are we going to lose? Not just how many did we gain from the plant that you're citing or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Even if I grant you that those were because of the tariffs that we're getting those jobs, my question would be, how many are we going to lose because of the tariffs? And if that number isn't a positive, which it never, and I want to be clear about this, never in history of any country that the time we've been studying this, has it been so, right? Well, what are we doing?
I'll try
We're
to
borrowing
answer
from Peter to pay Paul.
Potentially. So I'll put it in this regard, because I've at least tried to study both sides of this argument to understand who's right. Given the time frame that I gave you, right? So we're going to 2030 with this, right? If I'm wrong and my opponents are correct, is that I'm thinking it's somewhere on the neighborhood of 2 to 2.5 million jobs that you're putting at risk, because it's just straight inefficiency that you're shoving into the market because you're adding a bunch of taxes. And you're not really getting anything out of it unless the government starts throwing out a shitload of social spending from the money they get from the tariffs, which those should not work very well because they're regressive. On the other side, if I'm correct, you'll get more jobs, but proving that is a pain in the fucking balls, because I told you earlier, right? I can say that we have a lot more construction jobs, but did we lose other jobs in response to that?
We did. In 2018, we did. In 2011, with the Obama tariffs, we did. When the Bush steel tariffs went in, I forget the date of that, the year, we did. Like, every single time, we have. So why is this time different?
Well, here's the problem. Is that in reference to 2018 and only in the year 2018? Or is that reference to, hey, what was the downstream effects a couple years later when the market readjusted to this?
Both of them cost net jobs. We have studies over like 50-year periods over multiple different countries that show tariffs cost jobs.
Yeah,
like,
I've seen the studies.
You're not going to find any support.
Like, yeah, I've seen the studies. Like, I mean, if you want to keep repeating the same old argument, you can. Here's my general problem here, Wick, that I have to try to dissect here is that how do you prove that we lost these jobs versus we lost jobs versus what we made jobs? And it's not that you can't just go head counting. We definitely do that.
Yeah, there's an answer to that. Companies will say, hey, we're doing this layoff because we can no longer afford to make our product at this price point because we now have a tariff that is costing us more to bring the raw materials we use to produce. So we do have to cut our labor force in order to keep our profits, right? And they'll say that. And then when they say that, we just jot it down, we make a note of it, and then we compare it to the companies who say, we're investing because now the tariffs will protect us and let us to sell our goods internally, and we make a little more profit, so now we can afford to hire because of that.
So we're only comparing first-order effects. Right, so we're only comparing first-order effects instead of second and tertiary order effects.
I mean, there are other studies who compare the other effects, but I'm talking about just the net jobs.
Yeah, like, so this is my entire crux of my argument. If you look at the primary sources, I totally agree with you. Tariffs are a disaster. And this is where I push away from, my good friend Tyler here, is that I think when it comes to the secondary, more in particularly the tertiary, I think those are a lot more dubious at best. Is that you're trying to find a direct input, a direct change in the input calculations for why something has happened and looking at it downstream, not only years later, but also in entirely different sectors from what it was originally targeting.
Well, a lot of
this is
times...
why I have a... Sorry,
ahead,
let me
please,
finish this real quick.
yeah,
This is actually why I have a huge problem with the, hey, let's tax the rich people and give everything to the poor kind of mentality. On paper, it should fucking work. And yet, for some reason, whenever we try to tax rich people more, even when we are successful, it doesn't really change anything. When we pay people more in wealth benefits, because we do have liberal states that do this, it doesn't really change that much. I think we get lost in the weeds when it comes to a lot of these tertiary effects. I really do.
So $2 from Tesigal Johnson, Canadian dollars though, so you know, says, is recession good for the economy? Well, thank you for the $2. I don't think we need to answer this, but my point here is, and I'll let Nonfon get, and then I know Tyler wants to say some stuff. My point here is that outside of very specific targeted tariffs, where for national security reasons, you don't want you want to keep some stuff in house, for example, or another possible scenario is you have an industry that is budding that you haven't set up before, that again, usually for national security reasons, you want to do in-house. Fair, right? Maybe we could have a conversation on that where we're willing to take the hit because we get other tertiary benefits. But I've yet to see any country, and I'm talking about any country, not just the US, have better economic results for, I'm not just talking for the rich, I'm talking for everyone because of tariffs. I've never seen it. Ever. So I'm asking for an example.
Yeah, this one's a little hard. And I'm going to say that there's two reasons why I think that this
I just want a country, just a country name. Like
I think the United States
Japan
is
or
Hey,
China.
I'm gonna give you the hot take.
Tariffs in place for 30 years have been growing to maybe the number 2 economy in the world.
I'll say it one more
something
time.
like that.
Can you
Like
repeat?
if they've had tariffs in place for 30 years and they grew into the number 2 economy in the world, like that kind of example.
Do you
So
think
want
that
our
was
economy
because
to
of
be more
tariffs?
like China?
I think it was no. I don't think there was one single factor to explain the
But do you
growth
think
of the
tariffs
entire
helped or
nation.
hurt that?
Helped.
Really? Explain.
Yes. This is one of the manufacturing hubs of the world. Why did the manufacturing see fit to go there? Why did, when Trump threatened tariffs to Canada, did Canada's number 2 food producers say they had to move to the U.S. because they wouldn't be able to afford to import here? Like, you have tariffs, tariff move manufacturing around. That's the whole point I've been trying to make. And it's like, we're talking about like, but there's more jobs. Like if you have 250 jobs that all pay minimum wage and are part-time or seasonal, and we have 8 million more jobs than people, which we have right now, people looking for a job.
Pays?
A lot more than a service
Hold
job.
on.
I think 40% higher. 40% higher on
You're
average.
talking-
Hold on, just real quick. All jobs in the average of all jobs, at least in the U.S., like manufacturing, pays more than manufacturing jobs. So that includes, I guess, agriculture as well. But
Which is also
again,
something you would get rid of if you wanted to just let these tariffs go into play. We wouldn't protect our agriculture as well. Like, why not just go to 100% service industry?
Yeah, everyone learned to code.
There's the way, please. I mean, first of all, there's plenty of farming subsidies, plenty of farming subsidies and tariffs that I don't support.
Yes, but why wouldn't we want to just go to 100% service industry? Can you answer that? Like, why wouldn't we just let all of our industry go overseas and just import everything?
I mean, like literally 100%, you'd have national security concerns over that. But I mean, like, I don't see a problem with being a mainly service sector economy. Every single developed economy has followed the same pattern of a rising MES curve.
I want to wear the sneakers. I don't want to sew them and build them. I want to wear them. I don't want to screw the tiny screws in my iPhone. I want to use my iPhone.
Get your trickle down, babies. Now, what happens when, let's say, you're
trickle down? I'm the one pissing all over them, right?
Let's say most of your imports for gas and energy are coming from a country called Russia, and then Russia invades one of the countries that's part of your union, and you can't sanction them because if you sanction them, it'll hurt your own economy.
We are one of the most highly energy producing nations in the fucking world right now without tariffs.
I'm talking about the EU. This is what the EU did.
National security justification. No one is going to.
EU shouldn't have gotten rid of nuclear. They're stupid for that.
Yeah. So you're again like.
Wait. No one's
cheaper.
Tyler.
It's cheaper. Why not just offshore your energy? It's cheaper, right?
Tyler. no one is going to deny that there are some national security justifications for industrial policy, and that might even include tariffs sometimes. What we're going to deny is that that's an overall net benefit for the economy. It just means it's good for national security.
So
And also, I think, broad-based tariffs probably undermine national security because they hurt manufacturing. I'll give just one example. The semiconductor shit that Biden did, they're hurt by this because they rely on specialized equipment that can only be made in the Netherlands, okay?
So when China devalues its currency,
millions of dollars. Wait, hold on. I can reply to that. But like, these semiconductor companies have to buy equipment from the Netherlands, which is our ally, by the way, who doesn't really tariff us. They are hurt. A strategic industry is hurt by the 20% tariffs placed on the Netherlands. That's not a good thing. That's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. Again, you have to think in aggregate.
All we can do is go against the EU. We can't put tariffs directly on the Netherlands. Sorry, it doesn't work out that way.
The Netherlands is in the EU, so I understand.
What's that?
What
Because
industry
they
are we
tariff
trying to
us.
get?
We're trying to get the tariffs dropped off at the very least. That was
Like-
they were tariffing our cars at 10%.
They tariff us like 2%. That's also not a good justification.
10% they were tariffing our cars. We put a 2.5% and they dropped it to 2.5%.
Why are we talking about cars? I'm just talking about on average.
Because he asked a question.
So it's all about cars.
Yeah.
So that's the car industry that we want to bring from the EU back to the US. Because if you've been to the EU, their cars are totally different.
So
they have different roads. They have different everything.
They could still buy US. We buy EU cars here all the time.
No,
we have German cars.
US
all
cars will literally not fit in EU streets.
We can make versions of them.
Their cars.
We can make versions of them for the EU if we wanted to.
We can, but
all
nobody
being
wants
said,
to. That's the point.
Yeah, that's because there's fucking tariffs on them. We can't afford to sell there.
No, because it's more expensive to change the factories. Nobody wants to change the factories for
to quote Barack Obama, Korea has hundreds of thousands of cars here. We have less than 5,000 there because they put massive tariffs on us. They don't let our car companies come in and compete. That's why. That's money that was going into the US dollar, into the US worker, into the US business owner's pockets that now goes into another company's pocket. They turn around, they reinvest it into stocks or into bonds or things that they can make more money from. It's not going back into the hands of the worker. It's going to the richest 1%. We're funneling money upwards. It's proven in every way.
Just to be clear, Hyundai literally has production plants in the USA, in Alabama and in Georgia. So I think that's not quite what we're expecting.
Okay, $10. We also have auto manufacturing plants that manufacture parts that we sell to Canada and offshore auto industry plants, right? That are actually going to be closing down because they can't afford to sell it anymore because of the reciprocal tariffs, right?
I never just respond to everybody. I never got to my actual
$10, real quick, and then I can let you respond, and you can have the mic again. All outlets are saying that the agricultural industry is about to be squeezed. Also, beef prices going up will hurt the consumer, and people will spend less in beef industry long term. Thank you for the $10. I really appreciate you. Okay, Tyler, mic's yours.
All right, so 11% of our GDP is based off of our export, meaning 11% at the end of the day goes out to the entire rest of the world. At worst, we can see an 11% reduction. At the end of the day, though, China is giving us 18%. So this is going to hurt China more than it's going to hurt us. But why would we do this? Why would we want to punish China? They've been devaluing their currency. They've been making crap steel that they've been using to go around tariffs, find loopholes in trade policy to flood our markets with that crappy steel. Now, if Amazon did that, if Amazon dropped its prices artificially low to put its competitors out of business, that's illegal in the United States. But we let them get away with it on a world stage because we're so tied into their economy. They have 18% of their economy goes to the US. We're so tied in with them right now. We cannot accurately punish them the same way the EU can't accurately punish Russia for invading a country. Like, we cannot have these ties with these nations. So if you're acknowledging we can't get rid of them because of national security, you're admitting the problem exists. Well, I'm telling you real practical shit that's been going on with China for 20 years that's been completely unpunished. I'm showing you real practical shit that's been going on with Russia for now 16 years that's finally starting to get punished. Finally, they're the number 2 exporter of oil and gas into Europe. They're still only giving them 40%, but they're the number 2 behind the United States. It took years, decades, and canceling pipelines and blowing up pipelines in order to get that because we allowed these people to make these deals with the devil to import all this cheap shit from our enemies that don't have human rights, climate concerns, or any of the Western values we have because it's a little bit cheaper. And then when it bites us in the ass, it's like, why would we change? And it's fucking stupid, and it's the reason we can't go after China.
$10 from Zephyrhash, and I'm going to give it to Nonfon to respond to that, then to Tiberius. $10 from Zephyrhash says, I tried to buy a Ford in India. Same price range as a Hyundai for that model. It's the quality of Ford versus the quality of Hyundai that caused me to buy a Hyundai. You cannot tariff away quality and service. Thank you for that $10. Nonfon, you can respond to his points. Then we're going to give it to Tiberius.
Okay, just going back to the EU for a second so I can respond to that. The justification for tariffs on the EU is not even that they're tariffing our cars. Because again, the formula that they used is just the trade deficit divided by imports. This is like total unbelievable incompetence. Like they want balanced trade. Trump is openly suggesting that they want balanced trade. And also, Trump and Peter Navarro have both suggested that value-added taxes, which are a trade-neutral tax, are trade distortions. Peter Navarro wrote a piece for the Financial Times literally like 10 minutes before this panel started, and he considers value-added taxes a trade distortion, even though they're not. So how, I want to answer, how on earth do you expect Trump to negotiate with these countries to reduce their trade barriers when they are considering the value-added tax a trade barrier?
You're muted. We can't hear you.
The exact way he's doing it right now with well over 50 countries coming and calling the United States to get them dropped, but you're conflating different tariffs. You're conflating the intent behind one tariff for the actions of another. I told you there's 3 different tariff policies based off of 2 different laws. But like you're taking the reasoning for one and applying it to another. When I broke that down very clearly,
all of them except for there were tariffs added earlier on like steel and things, but those were all used with the same formula and the same justification that we want balanced trade, right?
Yeah, the way that they came up, I gave you that point. The way they came up with the reciprocal is a little bit stupid, but at the end of the day, there's, I think, what Tiberius
Can you provide me a list of these countries, by the way? The 50 countries you keep citing. Can you provide a list of which ones?
That document I linked in chat is with all my citations in it, is so we can avoid that specific question. It's in there, page 5 or so. So, I got derailed there. But yeah, no, with Canada as well, I think there's something more going on. He can't say what it is. It's abuse of power. At the end of the day, it's abuse of power. He's lying for the reason he's doing some of these tariffs. I have to concede that because otherwise I'd be lying. It absolutely is. And for those ones, you have a right to be mad about them.
Okay, I see a link to 50 nations have reached out to Forbes article, but that doesn't cite the nations. You do have a list of 7 nations here. Well,
7
EU.
nations were the ones I found independently.
Yeah. So again, I'm asking specifically for the what 50? Like there's 7.
I couldn't tell you offhand. The White House just says 50 nations.
Okay, so the White House said that's your source.
I understand that I'm not denying that countries have reached out. To clarify, my question is, how the fuck do we expect these negotiations to go when Donald Trump is coming in with the position that a value-added tax is a trade distortion when these countries all rely on value-added taxes?
I don't know the fine details and nuances of what they're going to be discussing behind closed doors. I can't answer that question for you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so, I mean, just for, like for the audience and everyone, almost every country in the world has a value-added tax. Europe relies on value-added taxes. In some European countries, it's like 40%. It's just a way to tax consumption. It is a trade-neutral tax. If Trump is going into these negotiations expecting them to lower their value-added tax, that negotiation is getting nowhere because these countries are not going to lower their value-added tax, nor should they, because again, it is a trade-neutral tax.
I'm sure that there's a way that they can worry about that in. Like, I'm not sure, like, value-added tax is set in stone. You can't do anything for it in trade negotiations. I think this is speculating a little bit past our merit here. We don't know what they're actually talking about behind closed doors.
Hold on. Do you know what a value-added tax is?
Generally, yeah.
Can you explain it?
What he just said was an accurate
I want you to explain it.
It's a consumption tax. Generally, for a consumption tax, that turns into a government piggy bank for whatever you want to use it for. The different countries do different things with it.
Okay. Tiberius, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. I'll just hit the VAT thing real quick. I'm not going to get into like what it is or why. I just would say that we probably should issue one. Doesn't have to be very big, but it would very much do well to cover roads and bridges. Moving goods and services from A to B is a really good idea if you want to tax that, especially when shit's going to EVs. The gas tax needs to be expunged. Number 2, to answer your question, my good friend Wick, is that you're like, hey, where can we cite really strong examples of where tariffs are good? Problem. We don't have a really good case study. And I think this is kind of the issue here. But largely since the post-imperial or the post-imperial era, where you basically had all the first world nations stop killing each other.
The imperial.
Tariffs
You're
have
talking
been
about
on-
the 1800s.
No, I'm talking about since World War II.
Okay, since World War II. Gotcha.
Yeah, I consider World War II the end of the imperial era.
Fair enough.
But anyway,
I was just trying to get the dates correct. But after World War II. Gotcha.
So number one is that the general norm has been less tariffs, right? So having a goods like citing criteria for like when it's good and when it's bad, kind of hard to find because we haven't really been doing it. And I know Nonfon and company will probably say, well, this is a great example of their successes, but I don't necessarily agree. Largely, the first world had a increase of standard of living and also an increase of productivity and consumption all at the same time until about 1975. And that's when the third world started getting involved. This is where it's not just an American thing or a Canadian thing, but it's also French, British, German. Like, we're having consistent issues to where if you're not building shit or you're importing a shitload of stuff from other countries, you are all seeing the wealth inequality in our countries increase. We're all seeing a massive economic bleed-off effects for people that we don't really like. I'm really with Tyler on this one. We have too many T's in this conversation. But I'm really with Tyler on this one. Why are we emboldening our enemies by trading with them because we say it's a few good extra dollars? I will take the political hit. I'll take the economic hit to not trade with China or Cuba or Venezuela because they're cunts. Particularly, fuck the Saudis, by the way. When it comes to where we are, is that I think, unfortunately, we're only in a special place where the United States can even try this. And granted, economic theory, if people do not want to risk this, I don't blame them. But the United States is a $25 trillion consumer market. We basically are the Hoover of sucking up all of the goods throughout the domestic markets on the entire planet.
The Hoover? Okay.
Yeah, the Hoover vacuum.
Yeah,
I
get what you're saying. It's just
anyway,
an unfortunate comparison to a particular president, but fair enough.
Yeah, fair. Anyway, if you actually wanted to test this by saying, hey, look, you have an innate consumer demand that's already within your country, you want to see how much your supply can domestically handle it and see the effects, the only country that I think can even take a crack shot at this is the United States. So yes, unfortunately, outside of saying I think there's some evidence to support that Japan has not or has managed its decline since 1990 because of some of its tariffs, which is a whole other conversation, because of the fact that Europe is an old folks' home, and everybody else is largely a net exporter, they can't try this, but we can, because we are the importer, because we buy everybody else's shit, is that we can actually say, hey, what is the economic repercussions of us building our own stuff? Here's the other side of that conversation. If we do this, and I'm right, the United States would be richer, and you, the average person, would have a bigger paycheck, and the rich people would have a lesser paycheck. But anyone that we cut out of that system we said we weren't buying from would be poor and destitute. And that looks like what Trump is actually trying to do with Canada.
If every economist is wrong about comparative advantage, if every economist is wrong about all the empirical studies, because you're absolutely wrong, we have studied these issues. There are a ton of natural experiments on which we can study the effects of tariffs on countries, on employment, on output, all those things. Then America will be richer. Yeah, great argument, buddy.
I know. I totally understand that I'm literally the 3% that's like in favor that global warming isn't real. Like, I totally understand where I'm kind of like coming from here. But it's really, really fucking weird to me that I hear so many people talk in the left hand about how economic inequality is getting worse and how like all these trade systems are just more beneficial. And then when we actually see in the positive, not aggregate, in your face fucking effects, is that the average person's getting poor. The average person's having a lot harder time affording shit. And the only argument you actually have is in the aggregate. Bitch, I don't fucking believe your goddamn aggregate anymore. I think you're a bunch of liars.
Broken. Every time I talk about the effects of tariffs on these things, on affordability, you go to, well, we're going to help some people in these certain sectors. Oh, you're going to hurt people in other sectors. You're going to make everyone
I want to hurt people who are rich. I'm specifically making it to where you're going to have to pay more to poor fucking people because they're building your fucking shit. I am willing to take that goddamn gamble. And if it fucks over other people, you know what? I'll have to eat it.
Yeah,
I
you're
doubt that.
hurting rich
I
people.
really doubt that.
You're
You
hurting
really doubt.
everyone.
You really doubt there's an opportunity cost to it. But regardless, again, I'm
We
not
can't hear
convinced
you,
that-
Tyler.
It's okay.
Still can't
Let's
hear you.
give it. Let's give it to
I'm
Snail.
not
Snail's been
sure.
trying to get in.
I
Snail, go
respect
ahead.
it.
Snail, your time to shine, buddy.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I just think it's ridiculous because tariffs don't just hurt rich people. I wish that was true. You're hurting everyone else who doesn't work in those sectors. Everybody else who doesn't work in those sectors. That's a small part of the economy. Everybody else is going to be worse off. Only those people are going to be better. That might be really good to you in the Rust Belt, and you might say, "Oh, look, all my neighbors are richer. I can go outside, and everyone looks happy. Unicorns, rainbows are shining. Everything looks great." That's just not how it's going to work for everybody else who doesn't work in those specific industries.
If
It's a very
that's the
small
case,
part of
hold on a second. Hold on. Let me hit this, Tyler. If that's the case, why do we see positive effects from increasing minimum wage?
Because minimum.
What do you mean? Because the demand for positive effects where demand for
Yeah.
labor tends to be pretty inelastic. The supply of labor also tends to be pretty inelastic. So it's just like, and there sometimes is monopsony in the labor market. So sometimes there are positive efficiency effects from raising the minimum wage. And in cases where there isn't monopsony, demand for labor tends to be pretty inelastic anyway. So it just ends up having a redistributional effect.
So
I guess
what I'm wanting to do is I'm literally giving you a different effect. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a different cause that would do the same thing to the labor market, and yet somehow that's stupid and ass backwards. Like
No,
I don't get this, guys. I don't.
No, I'm not convinced it would do the same thing for the labor market. Again, also you cited empirical evidence that minimum wages just don't have a big impact on unemployment. All the empirical evidence suggests that tariffs do decrease employment. So I don't know why you trust the empirical. I don't know why you're trusting the empirical evidence around minimum wage, but not any of the empirical evidence that I
Because
could
it does the same thing, and yet
tariff.
somehow, some way,
What do you
they
mean it
do
does the
completely
same
off
thing?
the.
Wait, what do
It's that
you mean it does the
If
same
you
thing?
have tariffs and you have to have them high enough, and this is actually one of the key issues that we keep having, is that for some reason people want to put out like a 5% tariff or a 10% tariff to where it's just like, yeah, it's going to cost more to import the item, but not actually be cost efficient to make it here or to make it within your domestic market. Now we're actually putting those kind of tariffs on the board to a large degree, where it was to 25% on washing machines, and now we're talking about like 40% on cars. It's like, yeah, now it is going to be cost effective. And so, yeah, I'm kind of this idea. It's like, yeah, with your empirical evidence, we haven't really crossed the line here to make it where it's like, yeah, now we've done the bookwork, now we've done the math, and the math actually says with this high of tariffs, it's now worth putting American jobs back to work.
To be clear, Trump didn't do that
Again.
math either, right? Because those tariffs have nothing to do with what you're saying. They're just completely ridiculous. So
Wait, which
nobody
tariffs?
did that math yet. The Trump tariffs,
The
the
reciprocal
Liberation Day
ones.
tariffs, reciprocal
So-
tariffs. We're tariffing countries that we have trade surpluses with, that have no industry that we're trying to compete with. So that's not doing what you're saying, right?
I don't
It's more doing
disagree
what I'm
that
saying.
I don't disagree that like the reciprocal tariffs have been kind of half-assed, 100,000%. But what I am 100% on board with is the fact that these aren't cheapskate tariffs. These aren't literally just, oh, hey, here's 5% here, 10% here. This is literally swinging the hammer at something. We are going to see effects. Now, granted, could I be wrong? Yes, I am not the omega God-given fucking non-fan who just somehow knows all the things and always trusts, just because somebody else said it, I'm going to go with them. Yeah, when it comes down to it, is that I do think that we're wrong in this.
Sure, every other person who's touched that stove says it's hot, but me, I'm different. I'm special.
Well, I think we're changing the conditions. That's the key to my argument here, is that one, I think the United States is special, so comparing us to a lot of other countries is kind of foolhardy. Number two is that we're not going to be doing something that is incredibly tiny, where it's like, yeah, here's 5% or 10%, enjoy your higher priced products, fucking eat shit. It's actually, oh, wait, I've done the math now. I can actually make products here for a profit. And so, yeah, I want to see the downstream effects of this. I'm not Giga Chad enough to say I'm absolutely right, but I have a feeling people like Nonfan are going to look really ridiculous if this shit sticks for 6 years.
Okay, $5.
How do we know?
Hold on, $5.
Wait.
$5.
Yeah.
$5, and then I'll let you respond, Nonfon, because you were called ridiculous. Okay, gonna let you answer that. $5 from Nasser Gamers to say you're not hurting the FANG level rich as they'll further consolidate. You're hitting the mom and pop rich that can't. And that is another point, right? One of the problems with tariffs is that every time we have tariffs, people will go to the president at the time to get exemptions from the tariffs. And a lot of companies do this. A lot of industries do this. The agricultural industry will often do this. They'll get bailed out, basically, by being immune to these tariffs, and they'll raise heck, in other words. So you know who has the power to do that? Corporations, the big guys, the mom and pop stores, the middle class, the people who are just trying to start a business. They don't. So what this ends up doing is it helps the corporate and it hurts the middle class small business owners every time. And we see this every time.
Tariffs do?
Why is it different now?
Tariffs do that? I don't think that's what tariffs do.
Yes, that's absolutely what happens with tariffs.
So when Joe Biden slapped a 100% tariff on China to get them to stop putting their EV cars
on EVs on a specific industry, this is where you're getting this wrong.
EVs, to get them to dump
how many electric vehicle companies have suddenly shot up in America?
Multiple. They're growing through the roof right now.
I think the EV
almost
tariffs
every
are
car,
bad, but
almost every car company is outputting more EV because of that. And the same thing with a plant in Arizona said they're going to start outputting 50% more trucks because of the tariffs. Like the amount of U.S. based manufacturing we're going to see an increase of.
Okay, we're not talking about small middle class business owners.
If they're U.S. based corporations, the ones that actually have the balls of the U.S., why we're not putting a tariff on them? We're putting a tariff on foreign companies. My problem here is if I want to start a new company that uses steel, let's use steel as an example, and I'm going to make a widget, and this widget, I need to buy steel to make the widget, right? I need it to make my equipment that manufactures the widget, right? All these things. If that goes up and I don't have the same connections, and so Amazon, who's got an exemption, suddenly doesn't have to pay the 20% to import it from China, but I do because I don't have the same connections as Amazon, I'm not going to be able to compete. Okay, so let's just drop
the sanctions. But that happens all the time.
Policy.
That's happening now.
Why aren't we talking about dropping workers' protection? Why are we talking all the things that drive the U.S. labor cost up?
So dumb.
Yeah.
Hold on. All the things that drive the cost of labor up in the United States, you don't want to cut those. You want to leave those in place. You just want to get people to take advantage of loopholes. So I got a couple things. I'm finally able to get in here.
Hold on, that doesn't even make sense. No, stop. Because that doesn't even make sense. This thing also does something bad or something that might be bad, but I can give you specific reasons why we want OSHA, for example, and how before OSHA, it costs the workers much more in terms of health costs
I agree.
And things like that. Whereas with tariffs, you cannot give me a benefit. Not overall.
Not overall. Yeah, overall, we're going to have less jobs. It doesn't matter that they're lesser paying or part-time or shittier.
You haven't substantiated any of that.
Trade increases wages.
Hold on, you haven't substantiated any of that.
I just showed you factory and
you gave me an anecdote. That's what you gave me. That does not prove anything.
Higher than the service industry. I don't. What do you want?
Do you think it's the service industry jobs that are going to be lost?
Yes, the 83% of jobs we have in service are the ones that are going to go away. Yes.
That is
some of it will be that, but
that's just
most of it will be that. A large amount will be that. So you're making the same point. The tax cut point. Remember how Trump cut everyone's taxes, but it disproportionately affected the 1%. So it was a tax cut for the rich. You guys are making the same fucking argument here. It disproportionately hurts the 1% when we tariff.
I don't believe that to be
true.
No,
hold on, no, stop. First of all, the 1%, they might have one less house. They might have to sell one of their 30 Porsches, okay? The people who get their jobs laid off that aren't the 1% ain't going to be able to feed their fucking families.
We have excess jobs.
I can't do that now.
Hypothetical scenario. We have 9 million excess jobs. When is the time we say, okay, we have enough in the number amount, let's raise the quality? I think when you have 9 million more jobs than people employed, that's the time to do it.
Okay. Could I?
It's not going to work, though.
Am I good now?
Okay. Economist Wick, I don't care what your prediction is. Answer my point.
You haven't made one.
I just did. We have 9 million extra jobs than people working. When is your time to say We should worry less about the number of jobs and more about the quality of pay.
We should worry about the quality of pay, but do you think tariffs are the best way to do that? I do not. It's like, if we have a crime problem, your solution is let's just shoot them all.
It's not the best way to do it. It's a factor.
There's a fire. Let's bring in the flood. Let's blow up the dam and to cut off the fire that's burning in this one house. Let's blow up the whole dam so the whole fucking city floods to stop this one fire. It's crazy.
Yeah, let's completely stop using fucking gasoline to stop this climate fire. That's something you're for. That's something you voted for.
Nobody advocates for that.
I have never voted for stopping fossil fuel production.
Yes,
I live in Pennsylvania. I voted for increased production, sir.
Fossil fuel. It was a massive reason we saw prices of gas spike before inflation.
We were producing more gas than ever under.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Of course, facts don't fucking matter. Of course, facts don't matter to this guy. Of course, none of this matters to this guy because he's got this one factory in this one state. Nonfon. Nonfon, go ahead. I've cooked him enough. Follow up. Let's Eiffel Tower this bitch. Go ahead. Nonfon, go ahead.
Look, okay, so there's a couple of points out there that I have to respond to now. One, guys already gave you the reasons why it doesn't seem like trade reduces wages. Trade makes people specialize in industries where we are more productive, and therefore they get paid higher wages. There's good reasons in theory to believe this, and there seems to be empirical evidence that trade increases income as well, and trade's benefits are a lot of times disproportionately felt by poor people who buy a lot of imported goods. It is good for poor people. That is my position. Obviously, by the way, I already explained to you, Tyler, there are certain taxes are pro-growth. The reason I'm in favor of a lot of these carbon taxes or whatever is because I believe they are pro-growth. I don't believe tariffs are pro-growth. There are plenty of ways to raise revenue that is pro-growth. There are also social objectives that we might want to achieve. We might want to make the quality of work better, and that might involve some deadweight loss in some reduction in output in exchange for that social goal. And there are some cases where that trade-off is worth it, some cases where it's not. I think it might actually be the case that OSHA is pro-growth because workers stay healthier and are therefore more productive. But I'll grant you that worker protections are negative growth. It still could be worth it for achieving the social goal. I don't believe there is a good social goal here for these tariffs. So obviously,
I get you. You don't believe it.
One last thing. I want to answer
you guys' feelings. You're telling me I'm the one not bringing facts, and all you're saying is I don't believe it.
We have no here. This is better. We have no good reason to believe it. I have data that shows that I provided a theory. I provided the comparative advantage theory, which it indicates that people will specialize in what they are more productive in, and therefore that's going to increase their wages. And there's evidence as well. I can send you studies that trade increases income, and there's evidence as well. I can send you the studies that guess what? Poor people buy more imported goods and therefore benefit disproportionately from trade. There are evidence for all those things. There's no good reason to believe otherwise. I also want to know, I was told I would look ridiculous if these tariffs stuck around for 6 years. I want to know, what is the outcome where I look ridiculous?
Oh, the outcome the outcome is if this sticks around, and if I'm correct, is that we're going to see probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6% wage growth every single year for the next until 2030, if not longer, because we have more people that are going to be investing within building these jobs that people need. 2 points here that I want to make following this up. Number one, Wick was talking about, hey, are we eating jobs across the board? Yada yada yada. We have more people employed than we ever have at this current point. It's about 160 million people who are working. As of that, we have about 8.3 million people who are in construction jobs. That's the highest it's ever been. So, we are seeing growth in this sector, and we are seeing growth in the overall economy. So, there's a level where it's hey, if the first round of tariffs that we're already dealing with is trading jobs, someone's got to find me the sector that they're eating it out of. And if it's taken out of some shitty service sector jobs that people are coming from into to construction, fucking win, baby, all day. I will happily advocate that these people are getting paid more. Second of all, cheaper goods are not always better. I am tired of this fucking argument because it is bullshit. Stop giving me cheap Chinese vacuums that break after 6 months. Yes, I will take the American one that's 30% more in cost, but actually lasts 5 fucking years. You can talk about it with sneaker shoes, general appliances, the whole 9 yards. I can go into depth when it comes to just your average tools that you buy, is that if you get something like Right Tools, which are made in the United States, they're a higher quality, they're usually warranted, and they actually will endure damage. You'll have the fucking half the shitty ones that are made in China. They'll break on you when you're trying to torque a wrench. Where's the value in that? Cool, I got my fucking cheaper wrench, but I have to replace it now.
Look,
consistently.
I've had a lot of American companies that are also trash, right? Like, fair. But there are a lot of American products that, again, there's a reason that other countries don't buy American products is because the quality isn't there. That's not with every product, obviously. That's not with every company, obviously. But that's why we allow free trade so that consumers can choose. And we don't have the government pick winners and losers like we do in a tariff situation. But Nonfon, go ahead.
Do you guys have evidence that trade increases wages in aggregate? If you send me some shit about partial equilibrium thinking, okay, I'm going to crash the fuck out.
No, I'm not trying to challenge you on the GDP argument at all. He
Then
just
why
keeps
you guys
going back
bringing
to
up
it.
this point about wages? You're like, I want American workers to be paid more. So do I, motherfucker. That you realize GDP is equal to income.
It's not one-to-one.
No, it's not. That's the fucking take I hate.
No,
It's not
GDP is
one-to-one.
literally equal to income.
Yes, but it's not. That's distributed.
Everyone in the audience, go to ChatGPT. Ask, is GDP
That's
equal
trickle
to
down
aggregate income?
This is
That's
trickle down.
Reaganite economics.
I don't give a
You're
fuck
opposing
if our
far
GDP.
right-wing economics.
I don't give a fuck if our GDP is 10 times greater if that means all that 10 times went to the top 1%. I don't give a flying fuck. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help my neighbor.
I have already told you that I believe trade is also beneficial to the poor. More beneficial
It is,
to the
it
poor.
trickles down.
I heard you. You've
That's
said
not
that about
trickle
4 or
down,
5
that's
times now.
direct to poor people. First of all, even if even if it was trickle down, if the evidence supports it, then call me a trickle down or whatever the fuck. But I don't believe it's trickle down. It is a direct benefit for poor people to specialize where they are more productive and therefore earn higher wages. It is a direct benefit to poor people to not tax them with a regressive tax. It is a direct benefit to poor people to let them import goods.
You're right. You're right. I agree. You're right. And so
that's not trickle down. How is that trickle down?
These generous corporations that are making all this money just naturally pass it on to their workers, right? Because they're just, good people.
Do you disagree
Nope,
that wages are largely determined by productivity?
Hold on. Because if that's the case, why don't we just get rid of the corporate tax?
No,
That's
absolutely
more-
fucking not.
Okay, first of all, yes, get rid of the corporate tax. Holy base.
100%.
Second
No
of
other
all-
taxes to take its place. Just get rid of it.
What? Sorry, I support replacing the corporate tax with something called a DBCFT.
No. Just get rid of it. It's more productive to the economy. Just get rid of it.
So I would say it might have pro-productivity benefits getting rid of corporate tax, but I would say the loss in revenue and increasing deficit spending would probably
but you just told me gas tax is pro-growth. Taxing the number one source of fuel in the world is pro-growth to you?
I don't know if I said a gas tax. I don't think I said a gas tax is pro-growth. I said,
yes, you did.
when did I say a gas
He
tax?
said a
is pro-growth?
VAT tax.
He said gas tax. The gas.
No,
you did say
carbon
gas. Maybe I
tax.
just said
No.
the carbon
Carbon or
tax.
VAT?
I might have.
Carbon
I
tax
might have
is
said
pro-growth.
VAT. I said carbon tax is pro-growth.
Yeah.
I do believe
Yeah.
carbon tax is pro-growth.
So
but carbon tax
taxing-
is negative externality.
Taxing the output of carbon for the biggest
Hold on,
industries
do you
in
not
the world.
understand his argument with the carbon
get it.
tax? I don't
I
know
get
if I
it.
agree
It's
with
like
the
a
argument, but I
pro-growth.
understand it, right?
It makes companies spend more money so they can get better output of whatever byproducts
Yeah, but
that they
it's
have.
a negative. It stops them from
That gets
emitting
taxed on the
carbon,
consumer.
a negative externality.
I agree, it does, but it doesn't pass it. They pass that cost on to consumers. It makes it cost that negatively.
Doesn't
hurts
mean
poor
it's not
people.
negative growth.
Government policy hurts poor people. Are you going to get rid of it?
No.
No.
So, are you? If you're
You're
saying
not. You're just saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You are for policy across the board that hurts poor people because you think you're worth it.
No.
But then we have to believe that in this one instance, just because you read an economist like that plagiarized somebody from the 1800s, we should believe you that you're far right. Like, nah, dude.
No. Look, so I don't know. Like, if we're presuppose, I don't believe that climate policies, for the most part, like hurt poor people, at least on net. Because if
They
the
do.
counterfactual for the poor people is a destroyed fucking planet, it's probably better for poor people that they pay a little more for the carbon that they emit. Like,
So something's more important than GDP.
I think it's a good- I think that's a good thing.
No, GDP is number one. GDP's got to be number one. Sorry, the planet gets destroyed. GDP is
don't-
higher this way.
Tyler, I have explained this to you multiple times.
I've heard you.
One,
This is-
I don't think he's being contradictory here, Tyler. Like, My general issue
The GDP is
that,
0 if we all die.
Right.
I understand that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one, the counterfactual
mean-
works,
The
and
GDP
two,
is 0 if we put all of our manufacturing into China, and then they fucking
that's
sanction
not.
for
No.
being
Sure,
capitalist.
if we put all of our manufacturing into China, that would be true. But thankfully,
And then they
we
sanction
don't.
us for something. As soon as they become the world power, as soon as they become
what do you mean
manufacturing output,
if we put even if I grant you, we put all our manufacturing in China, what they're going to
then they-
sanction the service sector? People, there's still domestic
and they say,
demand
you
for
know
service
what?
sector goods.
All
So-
we have to do is flip a switch, and your entire fucking country shuts down. You've admitted a national security argument already, and now you're fighting
Yes,
against
but I already
it.
told you. I have already told you that I believe this policy undermines the national security thing because you're fucking up all our alliances and tariffing our allies, and you're tariffing all the intermediate goods that that businesses use, that manufacturers use. Half of all the fucking goods we get imported from Canada and Mexico, who I understand weren't tariffed with this tariff round, are intermediate goods used to produce other goods. When you tariff those goods, you hurt manufacturing. You hurt the strategic industries. I gave you the example: semiconductor manufacturers, a very strategic industry, import goods from the EU that can only be made in the EU. The tariff is
Right now.
actively undermining.
Okay,
What? Sorry, the tariff is
Right
actively
now.
undermining our ability to produce semiconductors.
Today, and then in a month it won't, because they're building companies
How long
in
do
the
you think
United
it
States
takes
to
to
produce
build
this.
Again. So I'm going to say
Hey, but
opportunity
to-
cost. I know your brains break when I say opportunity cost, but I understand. But right now it's actively undermining our ability to produce these things, and there's no
Yeah, the
there's no
short term.
reason to. There's no in the long term it will as well, because we're not as efficient at producing these things as the Netherlands is, which is why the Netherlands produces these
We're
things.
not as efficient today. As soon as we tariff them the same way we're being tariffed by the European Union, it'll cost cheaper for
no.
I don't understand what your argument is here.
Again.
Like, they pay their workers just as much. They have just the same protections environmentally and such. Why can't we? Are you saying Americans are inept and they can't do it? If we're building these facilities here right now,
What?
we're doing Operation Warp
They're-
Speed
they're-
2.0
I'm
to
saying
push
the
out their
opportunity.
reputation.
The opportunity cost for America is higher because we have other advanced sectors that Europe doesn't have. Most of the tech shit that contributes to our GDP takes place in America. The only like big tech company in Europe is like fucking Spotify. Okay, the opportunity cost for America is higher. That's why the Netherlands should be building these things. They also have all the fixed cost built out already. They benefit from economies of scale. There are benefits from economies of scale, and because Netherlands has the economies of scale built out already, they benefit from that.
Sunk cost fallacy. We build it here, that's suddenly out the door.
who's gonna hold on? Where do you think?
Wait, no.
No, there's
Not
so
sunk
much
cost,
wrong with
you're
this.
just talking about.
Fixed
There's
cost.
so much wrong with
I understand,
this.
but
It's a sunk
infrastructure is
cost
a
fallacy.
fixed cost.
It's a
Infrastructure
sunk
is-
cost fallacy is what you're exposing, is what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying like for something that has very high fixed cost, it's more efficient to only build out that fixed cost once and have like one facility producing that thing. It's not more efficient to
I
have
get
two
that.
facilities producing these things. It's not a sunk cost thing. That's a fixed cost thing.
You're
That's
saying it's a sunk cost
average-
fallacy
average
is what's saying that. If that second thing is over here, then it's different, because then you can go get your products over
Okay, so
here.
we
We're next door to
understand
each
that
other,
with
I
these
agree.
higher end things, you can't just come out of high school and start working there. You need training, you need experience, you need higher education, you need these things. We have a very limited supply of that in America, especially since we've stopped immigration pretty much, and we're just snatching people off the street and deporting them to the torture prison, right? That's happening.
That's not even close to true.
And I mean, people are advocating right now for getting rid of the H-1B visa.
You just said
Right?
stop
So, hold on,
immigration?
stop. Let me make a point, okay? And then you can respond, okay? But here we go. We have a limited pool of workers who can work in these things. So they are already employed gainfully, right? In a lot of cases, the ones who are actually good at their jobs, first of all. And when we make a new plant that requires these things, like unless we import them from other countries, right? We just don't have the base. We don't have the educational base. We don't have the ability to have both where they were working before and where they're working where we want them to work to happen. So it's cheaper, easier, better to get it from the Netherlands. You understand this,
right
correct?
now,
Now you can
yes,
respond.
right now. I've said this multiple times. Right now it is. And then you build the facility here. They still have all the climate regulation. They have higher taxes. They have all sorts of shit. There's no way it should be cheaper to build something in the Netherlands than here if we have the same output. We just don't have these factories built.
crash
They're
out. I'm
being
gonna crash
built
out. I'm gonna crash
right
out.
now. I don't care what you're, because you keep giving me your feelings and what you think, despite the fact that I'm meeting you with evidence. I don't care. Never
I have
more
facts.
expensive.
way more evidence than you have. What do you mean?
You keep saying that, but you keep repeating the same point over and over. I feel like you basically made something up. I've caught you making shit up in this debate.
About opportunity cost, and you keep forgetting.
I literally caught you making up something about debating about how they can't negotiate when there's a value-added tax. I showed you negotiations that took place with the value-added tax where you could limit it to certain sectors.
I didn't even say anything. I asked you, how well do you expect negotiations to go when Donald Trump is going to these countries
You said they were impossible.
with the mindset? If I literally said it was impossible that these countries lower their value-added taxes, that I apologize. It's obviously not impossible for these countries to lower the value-added taxes.
It's common practice.
These countries rely on value-added taxes for a lot of revenue, so it's unlikely
it could be adjusted. They also rely on the tariffs that they have on us for as well. It's common practice, but yes,
no. Come on.
It is cheaper for us to do that.
Tariffs are not a major revenue generator in any of these European countries. Shut the fuck up. What do you mean, dog? Nowhere near the value-added tax.
No, they're not. They're not generating revenue. What they're doing is they're taking away our competitive edge. So what Tiberius was saying earlier, a 10% tariff is just a competitive edge adjustment. It's not actually like a tariff to incentivize anything to come back here. It's just a competitive edge adjustment to try to make our products or worth the same amount as the people importing. So that's not a huge deal. But yes, they are not making money off the tariff. They're reducing sales with the tariffs, selling it to their own companies, and then making money off the taxes from the sales of their own companies because their own companies are allowed to scale up due to these tariffs, making it not wanting to buy U.S. products. The same idea of what's going to happen here. We put tariffs in, U.S. companies start selling more, they get to scale up as opposed to people over there scaling up, coming back in and investing in stocks, bonds, and all sorts of shit that only make rich people richer. This money is going back into the pockets of the workers, not overseas, and then back in the form of more investment to make the rich richer. You keep missing that and just saying, look at the aggregate amount of money. Who cares who's getting it?
I care because, again, I think that trade helps poor people too, better than protectionism helps poor people.
I do too, but unfair trade practices are happening, and you seem to just want to keep going.
We disagree. I don't understand what this unfair trade practice thing is. I believe that the optimal thing for poor people is to engage essentially in unilateral free trade.
What unfair? Can you give me an example of an unfair trade practice between, let's say, Israel and America?
Israel? No, I can't. They put like a 10% tariff on us and kept it quiet.
What about?
As soon as the US said
I'll give you
something,
another. I'll give you another example. Netherlands and America, because
Netherlands doesn't have their own tariff policy. They go through the EU. It would be the EU generally.
Okay, well, give me one of those.
I did already in this debate. It was their 10% tariff on our cars. As soon as Trump put in a 2.5, they dropped theirs at 2.5.
Okay. How is that unfair?
Adding an extra tax to an import. If adding a tariff isn't unfair, what the fuck is this discussion about?
We're not talking about fairness here. We're talking about.
They can be like, again.
Do you not understand? This isn't about fairness. This is about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I don't see tariffs not working. I see them working exactly as intended. They work exactly as intended.
Real quick, what's it going to look like if tariffs work? Like 5 years from now, is that what we can safely say?
Well, Tiberius would probably be better for that, but he was saying 2.5 million jobs out of the 8 million that we have extra right now that we're missing, and we start seeing a higher quality of job come in at a pretty low rate. Let's say it's only a 2% increase in manufacturing jobs. That's a slight bump up in wages when you're looking at wages versus inflation. It is a small gain, absolutely, but when you have a million factors,
Tyler,
crash out. Just go, buddy. Crash out.
Okay.
Just crash.
Everything.
Error 404.
Everything fucking stays the same.
Can we do outros?
Wait, Tyler.
We're going in circles.
Wait, Tyler, please. Do you agree, yes or no, that tariffs increase exchange rates, generally speaking?
Yes, and they also affect other sectors. Yes, I understand all that.
Yes. Okay. Do you agree that, generally speaking, can we agree that tariffs, generally speaking, lower labor productivity?
I'm pretty sure that's right. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Do you think that those two things would, let's say, for the first one, hurt wages in export sectors? Do you think that raising exchange rates would decrease wages in export sectors?
Generally, yes, because those two things you just described are also features of unions, and generally those do decrease exports as well, yes.
Okay, wait. Sorry, I don't know if unions appreciate exchange rates. But
yeah, but it does having a higher paid union working on a job affects the price of
Okay.
something, and it affects the exchange rate and the trading it does.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to throw a flag. It's
Wait,
8 o'clock.
no, I have to, please.
You got
No,
a
no,
minute because it's 8 o'clock in a minute.
Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay, so you agree that tariffs, although they might raise wages in some sectors, would decrease wages in, say, the export sector?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I'm
I gave you the GDP argument right up front, and all you've been doing is
Why
arguing the
you keep
GDP
bringing up
argument.
the point that we're going to get people to pay higher, we're going to get people who have higher paying jobs when you're going to have more people getting paid less?
You're not going to have more people generally. It's going to take us some time. It's not instant, dude. It takes, we're talking, as fucking, he said, 30 years for this shit to pan out. Generally, yes, you're going to see some short-term problems.
Okay, great. We've circled the drain 100,000 times, and here we are. Thank you, one and all, for coming here. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have one announcement, and then I'm going to let these people have their outro. So my announcement, gang, we have no other shows this week. Why? Why such a light schedule? It's because I'll be preparing to go on Timcast on the Culture Ward podcast with Tim Pool on April 11th on Friday. And I will be debating Lactoid, who you've seen here before, on Ukraine. I'm here to argue that Trump has been a massive failure in negotiating a peace with Ukraine. As we see, Ukraine is continuously under attack, even today. We're on day, what? It's been 3 months, 2 months here, and he was going to end the war on day 1. Hasn't happened. Putin is 100% at fault for the invasion. There is no justification for it, and I'll be debating this with Lactoid in the lion's den, so to speak. I'll probably be debating with Tim Pool as well and all his friends, let's say. But that's okay. Those are bad odds for them. Okay, great. We're here. We're welcome. So tune in. Again, I'm going to be preparing for that all week, so get your super chats and stuff in now. Let's give it first to Tiberius, let him start off, and then we're going to let Snail have the last word. Tiberius, who are you? Where can people find you? And what are your closing thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Tyberius D. I'm a retired Twitch poll streamer. I don't really do this much anymore, but I'm happy to have people invite me on a panel, but I don't really stream anymore because I generally don't like talking about politics that much anymore. We've turned it into the next form of religion. But it's always a pleasure to be invited on the Wick Show. I really appreciate that, buddy. And it's good to see you. And congratulations on going on Timcast and you versus Lactoid. That'd be fun. Best wishes to you, buddy. Just as my closing thoughts, I think I outlined most of what I wanted to say out pretty well. I understand that I'm the schizo poster in the back of the room when it comes to economics, where it's like, hey, look, I'm totally going up against the grain. I'm the 3% against the 97. I 100% understand that. I studied in economics, voted for Kamala. I get all that shit. I'm not pushing this shit because I think I'm just completely nuts. I'm literally just tired of people, unfortunately, like Nonfon, who are like, hey, look, we're going to keep outsourcing your job, but you're going to get a better one. The economy's going to be better. I don't believe you guys anymore. I just fucking don't believe you anymore. And that's all this comes down to is I think somebody's been lying. And that's a whole other conversation. But no disrespect to you yourself, Nonfon. I'm trying to, I'm archetyping you as the putrid enemy of 1,000, right? But yeah, if you want me on your panel, just feel free to reach out. I'll happily, at least try to engage with it. But it's been a pleasure to be back here, and it's been a pleasure to engage with all of you.
Okay, thank you for being here, gang. I have a link to his stuff, or at least his X account, in my YouTube. So click on that, give him a follow, and all that. $5 from Feder Methodist, real quick. Did we just witness a great party switch, Doodles? When we were young Dems, we were protectionists. I never was a protectionist. I was a free trade guy, but I love NAFTA. NAFTA is good. But we're gonna give it to Tyler. Go ahead.
So first of all, big congratulations to Wick. You deserve it. You do a fantastic job here. Super entertaining. It's great to see somebody come up. Sincerely, super happy for you. I hope you provide Russia with some good content.
Where can people find you?
Average Debate Enjoyer, YouTube and Twitch. Av Debate Enjoyer on Twitter. And again, the only left-winger on this panel, maybe Tiberius a little bit here, because everyone else is basically a Reaganite.
Okay, well, thank you for going, and links in the description, gang. Nonfon, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I know things got heated, but I love all you guys. I really enjoy talking to all you guys. We're all chill. What you saw here today, though, was the mind of sane-washing tariff defenders, okay? Trump's policy has none of their goals behind it. He's totally incompetent. His team is incompetent. That's why their formula is so fucked up. These people, the minds of tariff defenders, cannot think in general equilibrium. They cannot think in aggregates. All they think about is wages in certain sectors. We're going to help this sector. We're going to help this sector. They don't think about everyone. They don't think about what's good for America as a whole. You saw a complete rejection of the theory and empirical evidence that supports that trade increases wages, protectionism lowers it. I'll end by citing this IMF study. I brought it up before. 151 countries from 1963 to 2014. We find tariff increases lead to economically and statistically significant declines in domestic output and productivity. Tariff increases also result in more unemployment, higher inequality, and real exchange rate appreciation, but only small effects on the trade balance. If you want to watch me defend free trade, I got like 2 or 3, maybe more debates coming up on free trade this week, I think. Head over to YouTube, NONFON Nonfon, Twitch and Kick at Nonfon420. My YouTube channel has all these debates edited and put up there. So go check me out. I'd appreciate it.
Check them out, gang. Links in the descriptions. Really appreciate you, buddy. Lastly, TheSnailG. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, we saw none of the pro-tariff people defend Trump's tariff policy. They gave a bunch of arguments about other things some mythical tariff policy might potentially accomplish. None of that will probably happen. Like Tiberius mentioned, it's basically just vibes. People feel like, the economy's bad because of vibes. So, fuck it. Let's try something crazy. Let's put a bunch of tariffs on everything, see what happens. Chances are we're just going to get a bunch of inflation, which, 6 months ago was the worst thing ever for poor people, was literally the, Satan of the average person. Now we're going to get a bunch of inflation, and that's good somehow. In practice, we're probably just going to see a bunch of automation come back to the jobs that do actually come back to the U.S. It won't actually be proper jobs. It'll just be high-skilled jobs working on robots in factories, which will make nobody happy. And yeah, that's basically it. As we saw, we really had no arguments for Trump's tariff policy, just this mythical, magical tariff policy that's not happening.
Okay. Thanks. He didn't give me any links to link, so I didn't link him. But
yeah, I have no links. You can catch me weekdays on Nickelodeon on a show called SpongeBob SquarePants.
Okay. Thank you for being here. We're gonna raid out. We're gonna raid into Prime Kai. Make sure to tell him that this is a hate raid. So I will see you guys Friday on Timcast, I guess. So wait, bye everyone. If I get bored and I feel like I'm prepared enough, I might do a call-in show or something. But yeah. Wait, bye everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, they're done.